Welcome to the Chinese Lore Podcast, where I retell classic Chinese stories in English. This is episode 2 of Journey to the West. Last time, I gave you a brief introduction to this classic Chinese novel, so let's get into it. In the beginning, there was an elaborate date-keeping system that required you to do math. According to this system, 129,600 years made up one cycle. Each cycle could be divided into 12 phases, and each phase lasted 10,800 years. Toward the end of the 11th phase, so 118,800 years after the beginning of the universe, heaven and earth were still one, and no creatures existed. Then, 5,400 years after that, came the beginning of phase 12. At this point, all was darkness, and still no creatures existed. This was known as chaos. Another 5,400 years passed, and phase 12 was coming to a close. That was followed by the start of a new cycle, and the phase count went back to 1. As this new phase approached, light began to creep into the dark chaos. It took another 5,400 years, but by the middle of phase 1 of the second cycle, the light and pure substance rose upward, and the sun, moon, stars, and constellations were formed. These were known as the four entities. Another 5,400 years passed, and at the end of phase 1 of the second cycle, the earth began to solidify. Then, another 5,400 years later, at the height of phase 2, the heavy and impure substance hardened, and water, fire, mountains, stone, and earth came into being. These were known as the five elements. Another 5,400 years passed, and phase 3 began. With this new age came the creation of living beings. According to the book of the calendar, the essence of heaven descended while the essence of earth rose, and when they intermingled, all creatures were born. By the middle of phase 3, another 5,400 years later, men, birds, and beasts were created. So now the three powers, heaven, earth, and man, were all in existence. And here's kind of where human civilization and history began. Next, we had all those ancient sage rulers that we've mentioned in past novels, like the Yellow Emperor, Yao, Shun, and all the rest, who laid down the law for men. And according to the novel, the world was gradually divided into 4 continents, the north, east, south, and west. The eastern continent was called Shenzhou, or the Divine Continent. By the way, this was China's name for its ancient self. Beyond the seas of this divine continent in the east, there was a kingdom named Aolai. It was situated on the coast. Off the coast of Aolai, there was an island on which sat a mountain called Flower and Fruit Mountain. This mountain was the ancestral artery of the continental island, and it was formed when heaven and earth stood apart from one another. This was one of those wonderful divine places, and it looked the part, with a poem to prove it. It stills the ocean with its might, it awes the jade sea in its calm. It stills the ocean with its might. Tides wash its silver slopes and fish swim into its caves. It awes the jade sea with its calm. Amid the snowy breakers, the sea serpent rises from the deep. It rises high in the corner of the world where fire and wood meet. Its summit towers above the eastern sea, red cliffs and strange rocks, beetling crags and jagged peaks. On the red cliffs, phoenixes sing in pairs. Lone unicorns fly toward the beetling crags. The cry of the pheasant is heard upon the peak. In caves, the dragons come and go. There are deer of long life and magic foxes in the woods. Miraculous birds and black cranes in the trees. There are flowers of jade and strange plants that wither not. Green pine and bluish cypress ever in leaf. Magic peaches always in fruit. Clouds gather round the tall bamboo. The wisteria grows thick around the mountain brook. And the banks around are newly colored with flowers. It is the heaven-supporting pillar where all the rivers meet, the Earth's root unchanged to a myriad eons. At the very peak of this divine mountain, there was a magical boulder, 36 feet and 5 inches high and 24 feet round. Those numbers, by the way, corresponded to the 365 degrees of the heavens and the 24 divisions of the solar calendar. On top of the boulder were 9 apertures and 8 holes, representing the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams, all of which had great Taoist significance that are utterly beyond me. There were no trees around this boulder, but there were a lot of fungi and orchids on the side. Over the eon, this boulder had been soaking up the essence of heaven and earth, the sun and the moon. And then one day, something funky happened. Suddenly, the boulder cracked open and a stone egg emerged, the size of a round ball. As soon as it was exposed to air, the stone egg morphed into a monkey. This monkey was able to crawl and walk from birth, and the first thing he did was to kowtow once toward the east, once toward the west, once toward the south, once toward the north. As he did so, his eyes emitted 2 beams of golden light that pierced the heavens. Up in the heavens was the Jade Emperor, who reigned over a Byzantine bureaucracy of gods that we discussed at the end of our last novel, Vesture of the Gods. Well, on that day, he suddenly noticed these 2 beams of golden light shooting up from the mortal realm below, so he ordered 2 of his officers to go check it out. These 2 guys were named Thousand-Mile Eyes and Favorable Wind Ears. Now, in Investiture of the Gods, these were among the Taoists who died fighting for the villains, but were then canonized as gods because heaven needed bodies to fill its civil service job. So, these 2 guys now went outside the heavenly palace and pointed their eyes and ears in the direction of the golden beams of light for a while before reporting back. On your command, we investigated the origin of the golden light, they told the Jade Emperor. It's within the borders of the small kingdom of Aolai on the Shenzhou continent in the east. There's a flower and fruit mountain, and there's a boulder on that mountain. It produced an egg, which dissolved into a stone monkey. The monkey was bowing in all 4 directions, and when its eyes moved, they emitted golden light that shot up through the sky. But now that it's starting to consume mortal food, the golden light is starting to fade. Now, you might think the Jade Emperor would be interested in such an odd phenomenon, but he would be wrong. Instead, he was totally unimpressed. This is a creature of the mortal realm, born of the essence of heaven and earth. It's of no concern. So, while heaven occupied itself with more ethereal matters, the stone monkey down below was making himself at home on Flower and Fruit Mountain. He ran through the mountain, consumed its vegetation, drank from its streams and fountains, plucked its flowers, collected its fruits, kept company with its wild animals, slept under its cliffs by night, and explored its caverns and peaks by day. As the old saying goes, there's no calendar in the mountains, so you don't even know the year is over when winter ends. In this way, some indeterminate amount of time passed. One day, the troop of monkeys that our stone simian ran with were making merry among the green pines and pure water. And after a while, they decided to go bathe in a tumbling mountain stream. Where does this water come from? The monkeys wondered. We've got nothing to do today. Like every other day, let's climb up this source and find out. So, with lots of hooting and hollering, they clambered to the head of the stream, where they were greeted by a roaring waterfall that hung over a cliff like a curtain. "What wondrous water!" they said while laughing. "It flows from here down to the foot of the mountain and joins the sea." And then, the monkeys decided that, actually, a farcical aquatic ceremony was a good way to bestow supreme executive power. Hey, if someone has the skills to climb through this waterfall and find its source without getting hurt, then we should make him our king, they said. So the troop of monkeys asked 3 times who might take on that challenge, and the stone monkey leaped forward and said, "Ooh, me! So he closed his eyes, crouched, and jumped into the waterfall with one bounding leap. Suddenly, he felt no water coming down on him. He opened his eyes and found himself standing on a bridge behind the waterfall. Steadying himself, he took a closer look around and discovered that this was an iron bridge. Underneath it ran the water that flowed out into the fall, concealing the bridge. He then walked toward the head of the bridge and discovered signs that somebody might have lived here at some point. He saw tables, seats, beds, bowls, and plates, all made of stone. After looking around for a while, the stone monkey got back on the bridge and saw a stone tablet in the middle of the room with some words inscribed on it, which said, "Happy land of flower and fruit mountain, heavenly cave of the water curtain." The stone monkey was elated and now hurriedly leaped back out of the waterfall, shouting, "What great luck!" The other monkeys surrounded him and asked what it was like inside the fall and how deep the water was. "There's no water at all," he told them. "Turns out there's an iron bridge there, and on the other side of the bridge is a heaven-sent home." "What do you mean?" the others asked. "The water is flowing through a crack in the rocks under the bridge, hiding the entrance. There are trees and flowers around the bridge, and on the other side is a stone room with stone stoves, stone bowls, stone basins, stone beds, and stone chairs. And in the middle is a stone tablet that says, 'Happy land of flower and fruit mountain, heavenly cave of the water curtain.' This is the perfect place for us to call home. It's really spacious and can hold thousands of us. Let's all move in there, so we don't have to suffer from the elements." First of all, we're monkeys, so what use do we have for bowls and stoves? Second, stone beds? Really? That doesn't exactly sound comfy. And third, where did you learn how to use them? But never mind all the questions. The other monkeys were delighted at this report and said, "You lead the way, and we'll all go." And so the stone monkey closed his eyes again, crouched once more, and leaped back toward the fall, shouting for the others to follow. Some of the bolder monkeys immediately jumped in after him, while the more cautious ones took a while longer to muster the courage to do the same. But eventually, they all leaped through the waterfall and landed in the cave. Once there, they immediately started acting like monkeys and squabbled over the stoneware and stone furniture. The cave was filled with noise until all the monkeys had worn themselves out. Now, the stone monkey sat down on a stone chair that overlooked the room and said, "Hey, everybody, one must keep his word. You all said that if someone could make it in here, in fact, without getting hurt, you would make them your king. Well, I did it, and I found this heavenly cave where y'all can sleep in peace and live the good life. So why haven't you made me your king yet?" Now, to their credit, all the other monkeys immediately fell in line and lived up to their promise. They all bowed to him and declared him their king. So from that day forth, the stone monkey reigned as the monkey king, and he dropped the word stone from his name, replacing it with the word handsome instead. So from now on, he was known as the handsome monkey king, and I'm guessing that humility was his middle name. Oh, and apparently, these monkeys took this whole king business very seriously. Not only did they declare the stone monkey their king, but they now set up a whole class structure with clear distinctions between king, subject, and officials. There's probably a PhD dissertation somewhere in there about what it reveals that the novel not only imagines heaven, a bureaucracy similar to that of the human government of the mortal realm, but also that monkeys living in paradise will adopt such a system as well. Anyway, the Monkey King and his subjects no longer ran with the wild animals. Instead, they spent their days making merry on the mountains and in their caves. This state of bliss continued for some 500 years. I guess it was a long-lived age. But then, one day, in the middle of another never-ending party, the Monkey King was suddenly overcome by such troubled thoughts that he started to weep. All the other monkeys asked what was bothering him, and the Monkey King explained, "I may be living in bliss now, but there is a long-term worry that troubles me." The other monkeys laughed and said, "Great king, what else could you possibly want? We live blissfully in this divine place every day and answer to no one, not to the unicorns, not to the phoenixes, and not to the human kings. We are free. This is boundless good fortune. So what long-term worry can you have?" But the Monkey King said, Today we answer to no man or beast, but eventually we will become old and weak and fall under the jurisdiction of the king of hell. When we die, we will no longer be able to live among the blessed, and our lives will have been in vain. Well, apparently none of the other monkeys had ever contemplated mortality before, and now that their king had put this notion in their minds, the party came to a screeching halt, and they all started wailing. But then, from among the ranks of the simian officials, a gibbon came forth and shouted, "Great king, if you are thinking that far ahead, then this is the beginning of enlightenment. Among the 5 classes of creatures, only 3 do not fall under the jurisdiction of the king of hell." "Which 3?" the Monkey King asked. "Buddhas, immortals, and sages. They are able to evade the cycles of life and death and enjoy the longevity of heaven and earth." "And where are they?" "Only in the human world, in ancient caverns and mountains." Now this perked up the Monkey King, and he said, "Tomorrow I will take my leave of you all. I will leave the mountain and travel to the ends of the earth to search out these 3 groups so that I can learn from them the secret of eternal youth and how to avoid death." All his subjects clapped and cheered, saying, "Great! Tomorrow we'll scour the mountain to collect some fruits so we can hold a banquet to see you off." The next day, they did exactly that, piling heaps of fruits, herbs, and flowers on their stone tables. The Monkey King sat down in his throne, and one by one, his subjects offered him wine, flowers, and fruits. After a day of hearty drinking, the Monkey King got up early the next morning and said to his subjects, "Little ones, help me cut down some old pine trees to build a raft. Find me a stalk of bamboo to use as a pole, and pack up some fruits and such for my journey." His monkeys did as he instructed, and soon the Monkey King was pushing his raft through the breakers and into the open sea. He was in luck, as favorable winds were at his back and delivered him to the coast of a landmass to the northwest of his island. This was the southern continent. When he steered his raft onto the beach, the Monkey King saw some humans fishing, birding, harvesting clams, and making salt. He approached them, put on his mean face, and scared the humans so much that they abandoned their baskets and fled. One was too slow, and the Monkey King caught up to him and took the man's clothes for himself. The next thing you know, this monkey clad in ill-fitting human garb was swaggering through the towns and cities of the southern continent. And it seems that the people in those places were pretty much cool with this, as the novel did not report any mass panics from these encounters with the uncanny valley. Instead, any revulsion from these interactions were all on the other side. Gradually, the Monkey King learned the customs and language of man. He traveled the land in search of Buddhas, immortals, or sages who could teach him the secret of eternal youth. But all he found was a world filled with greed, as all the mortal men seemed to be occupied only with fame and fortune. The novel included a poem commenting on this. "When will the struggle for fame and fortune end? Toiling from morning till night, never free. Riding donkeys, they long for stallions. As ministers, they yearn to be princes. Only laboring for the sake of food and clothing, they never think of when the king of hell will come for them. Occupied with ensuring wealth for their descendants, no one pauses to consider another path." This went on for about 9 years, and then one day, the Monkey King came upon a great ocean on the west coast of the continent. He figured there must be immortals or sages on the other side of the ocean, so he fashioned himself another raft and traversed this body of water as well. Now this took him to the western continent. After yet more travels across this new land, he came upon a majestic tall mountain with thick woods. Having no fear of wild beasts, the Monkey King climbed to the top of the mountain to have a look, and he was quite impressed with the scenery. As he was surveying the landscape, he suddenly heard someone's voice coming from deep in the woods, so he rushed in that direction, entered the forest, and listened closely. Turns out, a man was singing, and the song went, "Watching chess games, cutting firewood. Ding ding. I stroll at the edge of the clouds and the mouth of the valley. Selling firewood to buy wine, I cackle with laughter and self-contentment. Under a clear autumn sky, I rest against a pine tree. Gazing up at the moon, I sleep until morning. Gazing out at this ancient forest, I scale cliffs and cross ridges. Wielding my axe, I cut down withered vines. When I've gathered a basketful, I walk down to the market with a song and trade it for 3 pints of rice. There is no competition, the prices stay as they are, and there's no scheming. With neither honor nor shame, tranquility lengthens my days. The people I meet are Taoists and immortals. Sitting quietly, we expound on the scriptures. Upon hearing those lines, the Monkey King rejoiced. Turns out the immortal was hiding here, he thought to himself. So he rushed forward and found a woodcutter, busy chopping wood. He wore a hat weaved from young bamboo husks and was clad in a plain linen shirt. Around his waist was a belt made from the strands produced by old silkworms. His sandals were made from straws and had straps torn from rotten sago trees. He wielded an axe and a bamboo pole with a rope, and he was busy at work, hacking away at an old tree. Approaching the woodcutter, the Monkey King said, "Old Immortal, greetings!" The woodcutter hurriedly put down his axe, returned his greeting, and said, I'm not worthy. I can't even feed and clothe myself properly. How would I dare to call myself an immortal?" "Well, if you're not an immortal, then why were you talking like one?" the Monkey King asked. "What do you mean?" "Just now, I heard you sing about meeting with immortals and Taoists and discussing Taoist scripture. So how are you not an immortal?" The woodcutter laughed and said, "To tell you the truth, an immortal taught me this poem. He's my neighbor. Because I'm poor, I was always occupied by worry. So he taught me this poem and told me to recite it when I'm worried so as to distract myself. Just now, I was thinking about some dissatisfaction, so I sang the poem. I didn't expect anyone would hear it." "Okay, well, not an immortal, but a solid lead nonetheless. Since you're neighbors with an immortal, why don't you study under him and learn the secret of immortality?" the Monkey King asked. "I have a poor lot in life," the woodcutter said. "My parents raised me to the age of 9, but then my father died early, leaving my mother widowed. And I have no siblings, so I have no choice but to take care of her day and night. Right now, my mother is old, and I dare not abandon her. And yet, our garden and fields are fallow, and we don't have enough to eat. So I have to cut firewood and sell it for a few coins so I can buy a few pints of rice to feed my mother. So I can't cultivate my Tao." The Monkey King said, "Well, it sounds like you are a filial son, so good things will happen to you. In the meantime, I hope you can direct me to that immortal so that I can pay him a visit." "Oh, he's not far from here. This mountain is called the Spirit Tower Heart Mountain. On the mountain, there's a setting moon 3-star cave. In that cave, there resides an immortal named Patriarch Puti. He has trained numerous disciples and has about 40 studying with him right now. Just follow this small trail and head south for a few miles, and you'll be there." So this Puti, by the way, is believed to be based on Subhuti, one of the 10 principal disciples of the Buddha. But here, he's being presented as a Taoist sage. It's just one example of the cross-proliferation between the two religions in Chinese culture and in this novel. The Monkey King now asked the woodcutter if he could take him to Patriarch Puti, but the woodcutter said, "You're so dense. Did you forget what I just told you? If I go with you, it will interfere with me making my living. Then who would tend to my mother? I need to cut more wood. You go on by yourself." So the Monkey King took his leave and departed the woods. He followed the trail over a hill. After a few miles, he indeed saw a cavern up ahead. It was surrounded by ancient trees and exotic flowers. The gate at the entrance was tightly shut, and all was quiet. Looking around, the Monkey King spotted a stone tablet perched atop a cliff that said, "Spirit Tower Heart Mountain, Setting Moon 3 Stars Cave." "The people here are really honest," he muttered to himself. Turns out this cave really does exist. But he was still just on the outside of the cave. He waited for a long time, but did not dare to knock. Instead, he jumped onto a nearby pine tree and ate the seeds from some pine cones to pass the time. After a good long while, the gate swung open with a creak, and out came a young acolyte. "Who's messing around out here?" he called out. The Monkey King leaped down from the tree, bowed, and said, "Acolyte, I'm looking to study the Tao and attain immortality. I would not dare to misbehave around here." "You're here to study the Tao?" the acolyte asked with a skeptical laugh. The Monkey King answered in the affirmative, and the acolyte told him, "My master just started delivering a lecture, but then he told me to come out here to open the gate. He told me that somebody was out here seeking to study the Tao, and that I should go welcome them. I guess he must mean you." "Yup, that must be me," the Monkey King said with a chuckle. So the Monkey King tidied up his clothes and followed the acolyte inside. They passed numerous towers, halls, and meditation rooms, and came to a dais. Atop the dais sat the patriarch Puti, and flanking the foot of the dais were 2 rows of disciples, totaling 30 in all. The Monkey King now kneeled and kowtowed a bunch of times, saying, "Master, Master, your disciple pays his deepest respect." "Who are you? Tell me your name and place of origin before you kowtow to me," Puti said. "I am from the Water Curtain Cave on Flower and Fruit Mountain on the eastern continent," the Monkey King replied. But Puti cut him off and declared to his disciples, "Kick him out. He's a liar. He's not suitable for studying the Tao." The Monkey King again kowtowed non-stop and said, "Every word I have said was true. I would never lie." "If you're honest, then how can you claim to be from the eastern continent?" Puti said. "That's 2 oceans and a continent away from here. How could you have gotten from there to here?" "I sailed across the oceans and traversed countless territories. It took me more than 10 years to get here." "Well, if it took you that long to get here, then okay," Puti said. "What's your surname?" "I'm not surly," the Monkey King said. "If someone were to hit me or curse me, I don't get mad. I just offer an apology. I've never been surly." "No, not surly," Puti said. "I was asking about your surname." So, this is one of those Chinese wordplays that only makes sense if you knew that in Chinese, the character for last name sounds the same as the character for temper. This surname surly joke I just relayed was from the Anthony C. Yu translation, and I think he did about as good a job with that as you could. Anyway, to see if Puti will take in the Monkey King as a disciple, tune in to the next episode of the Chinese Lore Podcast. Thanks for listening. Male and baby. That is in accordance with the theories on infants. So that was a pretty roundabout way of saying, "Hey, your last name is gonna be Sun." The Monkey King was on board with that. He thanked Puti and asked him to bestow a first name as well. "Within my sect, there are 12 characters that I give as names," Puti said. "You are the 10th generation of my disciples. You are in line for the character Wu. So how about we call you Wukong?" Wukong, by the way, means comprehending emptiness. The Monkey King loved it, and so from that day forth, he was known as Sun Wukong. He bowed to thank Puti again, and Puti told his disciples to lead Wukong outside to perform the initiation rites. So Wukong followed them out, formally paid his respects to them, and took up residence at the sanctuary. Each day, Sun Wukong learned language, customs, and the philosophies of the Tao alongside his fellow disciples. In their spare time, they swept the ground, tended to the gardens, collected firewood, and fetched water. In this way, 7 years passed in the blink of an eye. One day, Puti was lecturing from his dais. When he got to a really good part, Wukong was so taken with the material that he couldn't help but laugh and gesticulate wildly from his seat. Puti saw this and called him out. "Why are you dancing wildly instead of paying attention?" the master asked. "I was listening attentively," Wukong said. "When you got to a really good part, I couldn't help but be excited. That's why I was jumping around. Please forgive me." Well, so you recognize which parts are the good parts, huh? Pooty said. How long have you been here? I don't know how long it's been, but I do know that I have often gone to the backside of the mountain to collect firewood, and the mountainside is full of peach trees. I have gorged myself on peaches there 7 times. That's Tender Peach Hill, Pooty said. Since you feasted on peaches there 7 times, you must have been here for 7 years. What would you like to learn from me? Whatever you want to teach me, Wukong replied. As long as it's related to the Tao, I will learn it. There are 360 paths to the Tao, Pooty explained. Each one can bear fruit. Which would you like to study? Please offer me some guidance, and I will follow. I could teach you the way of the magic. What does that do? Magic allows you to summon immortals and cast divinations. With this path, you would be able to foretell fortune and avert disaster. Will it allow you to live forever? Wukong asked. Oh no. Well then, I don't want to learn that. Then how about I teach you the way of sects? What does that do? You would study all the sects like Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, the yin and yang, and medicine. You would read scriptures and chant the name of the Buddha. You can also summon immortals and sages. Can you attain eternal life that way? To try to attain immortality that way is like putting a pillar in the wall, Pooty said. Master, I am simple and don't understand these jargons. What does putting a pillar in the wall mean? When a man builds a house and wants to make sure that it's sturdy, he puts a pillar inside the wall. But by the time the house is ready to collapse, that pillar would have already rotted. That sounds like a no, so Wukong said. It sounds like that this is no path to immortality either. I don't want to learn it. Then how about I teach you the way of silence? What kind of fruit would that bear? It involves abstaining from food, refraining from movement, sitting in meditation, abstaining from speech, and performing exercises when asleep or standing up, going into trances, and being in total seclusion. And that can help you live forever? That would be like building the top of a kiln with sun-dried bricks. Master, I've already told you that I don't understand this jargon. What does this saying mean? If you build the top of a kiln with sun-dried bricks, even though they have taken shape, they haven't been forged through fire. One downpour and they will crumble. So that's a no too. I don't want to learn that. Then how about I teach you the way of action? What does that do? It involves acting and doing, extracting the yin and building up the yang, drawing the bow and loading the crossbow, encouraging the flow of the humors, refining elixirs, lighting fires under cauldrons, consuming red lead, purifying autumn stones, and drinking women's milk. And that will lead to eternal life? Trying to attain immortality by this path would be like reaching for the moon in the water. Master, here you go again. What does that mean? The moon is in the sky. Its reflection is in the water. You can see it in the water, but you can't actually touch it. So it's all for naught in the end. Then I don't want to learn that either. At this point, Pooty got up, jumped off his dais, grabbed his ruler, pointed at Sun Wukong and scolded him. You wild ape! You won't learn this and you won't learn that. This will not do at all. As he spoke, he approached Wukong and bonked him on the head 3 times with the ruler. Then, putting his hands behind his back, Pooty stomped off into his private quarters and shut the center door, leaving all his disciples behind. All the other disciples were taken aback by this, and they all gave Wukong crap, telling him, "You wild monkey, you were so out of line. Master wanted to teach you some Tao. Why did you refuse and argue with him? And now you've made him mad. Who knows when he's going to come back out?" But even as they vented at him, Wukong simply put on a wide smile and did not get mad at all. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Wukong lay awake in bed, guessing the time by counting his own breath. When it got to around the second watch, or sometime between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., he quietly got up, got dressed, and sneaked out of his sleeping quarters. Following the familiar path, he made his way to the back door of Puti's quarters. The door was half open, much to his delight. He now slid in through the door and quietly approached Puti's bed. He saw his master lying on the bed asleep. Wukong did not dare to make a racket, so he quietly kneeled in front of the bed. After a good while, Puti woke up, stretched, and muttered to himself, "Hard, hard, hard. The Tao is very obscure. Don't treat gold and cinnabar as commonplace. To teach miraculous spells to any but the right man is to tire the voice and dry the tongue in vain." Wukong now spoke up. "Master, I have been kneeling here for a long time." Recognizing his voice, Puti sat up and said sternly, "You crazy monkey, what are you doing here instead of sleeping in your own quarters?" "Master, yesterday at the dais, you instructed me to come here through the back door around the third watch so that you can teach me the Tao. That is why I dare to pay my respects to you here." So the whole whacking Wukong on the head thing was a secret code, one that Wukong was able to decipher. The 3 conchs on the head with the ruler indicated the third watch, and when Puti put his hands behind his back while walking away, that meant come by via the back door. Puti was secretly delighted that Wukong understood his meaning. This ape really is a product of heaven and earth, he thought to himself. Otherwise, how could he have solved my riddle? Wukong now said, "There is no one else here but me. I hope you can show compassion and teach me the secret of eternal life. I will never forget your kindness." "You were destined for this, and I am happy to teach you as well," Puti said. "Since you understood my riddle, come forth and listen carefully. I will tell you the secret of immortality." Wukong kowtowed to thank his master, and then leaned in and listened carefully. Puti told him, "This bold secret saying that's wondrous and true. Spare, nurse nature and life. There's nothing else. All power resides in the semen, breath, and spirit. Store these securely, lest there be a leak. Lest there be a leak. Keep within the body. Heed my teaching, and the way itself will thrive. Hold fast oral formulas so useful and keen to purge lust, to reach pure cool. To pure cool, where the light is bright. You will face the elixir platform, enjoying the moon. The moon holds the jade rabbit, the sun, the crow, the tortoise and snake are now tightly entwined. Tightly entwined. Nature and life are strong. You can plant golden lotus even in the midst of flames. Squeeze the 5 faces jointly. Use them back and forth. When that is done, be a Buddha or immortal at will." So Master Puti was dropping some real truths on Wukong, who took every line to heart. He then kowtowed to thank Puti for his immense kindness and left through the back door. By now, the sky in the east was starting to lighten, and he followed the same trail back to the front door of the sanctuary. He quietly snuck back in and sat back down in the spot where he was supposed to sleep. He then rang the wake-up bell and said, "Morning has come, time to get up." All the other disciples woke up and tended to their daily routines, having no idea that Wukong had attained the secret of immortality. In the blink of an eye, 3 more years had passed, and Patriarch Puti finally came back on the dais to deliver another lecture to the disciples about scholastic deliberations, parables, and the appearance of external conduct. Suddenly, he asked for Wukong, and Wukong approached the dais and kneeled. "What kind of cultivation have you been working on lately?" Puti asked. "Recently, your pupil has begun to apprehend the nature of all things, and my foundational knowledge has become firmly established," Wukong replied. "If you have penetrated the Dharma nature to understand the origin, then you have entered into divine substance," Puti said. "However, you must guard against the 3 calamities." Come again?" "Master, you must be mistaken," Wukong said after thinking about his master's warning. "I have often heard it said that if your Tao is strong and your virtue is great, then you will share heaven's longevity, and that you would be impervious to the elements and diseases. So what's up with these 3 calamities? What you have learned is no common magic, Puti explained. You have stolen the creative powers of heaven and earth and invaded the dark mysteries of the sun and moon. Your success in perfecting the elixir is something that the gods and the demons cannot tolerate. So even though you have increased your lifespan, after 500 years, heaven will strike you with thunder. You must be wise enough to avoid it ahead of time. If you can dodge that calamity, then you will share heaven's longevity. But another 500 years after that, heaven will send down fire to burn you. This is no divine fire, nor is it common fire. It's called negative fire, and it arises from the soles of your feet and reaches the cavity of your heart. Your entrails will be reduced to ashes, and your limbs would wither. Your 1,000-year labor will be all for naught. If you manage to dodge that calamity, then after another 500 years, heaven will send down a wind to destroy you. This is not the wind from the north, south, west, or east, nor is it the winds of the 4 seasons, or the wind of flowers, willows, pines, and bamboos. It's called the mighty wind. It will enter from the top of your skull, pass through your midriff, and penetrate all your orifices. Your bones and flesh will dissolve, and your body will dissipate. You must avoid all these calamities. So, heaven is apparently a petty jerk about people trying to attain immortality. Sun Wukong was put on notice, and he kowtowed to Puti and pleaded, "Master, I pray that you will take pity and teach me how to avoid the 3 calamities. I will never forget your kindness." "Well, it's not hard," Puti said, "but you're not like others, so I can't teach you. But my head is round and points toward heaven. My feet are square and planted on the ground. I have the same orifices and organs as others, so how am I different?" "You may resemble a human being, but you lack the human jowl," said Puti, pointing out Wukong's simian face, which has a more angular shape with hollow cheeks and a pointed snout. Wukong felt his own face and then laughed and replied, "Master, I may be lacking the human jowl, but I have my cheek pouches, which humans don't have. That should even it out." Puti said, "Fine, which method do you want me to teach you? The art of the heavenly ladle would teach you 36 transformations, while the art of the earthly multitudes would teach you 72 transformations." "I would like to learn more, so teach me the art of the earthly multitude." So Puti told Wukong to come closer. He then whispered some instructions in his ears. Wukong was the type to pick up everything quickly, so he memorized the instructions on the spot and started to practice on his own. Soon, he had mastered the 72 transformations. So, I guess heaven may be petty about people trying to attain immortality, but it's also pretty dumb, because apparently won't recognize you if you turn yourself into a bird or a fish. On another day, while the master and his disciples were enjoying the evening scenery in front of the cave, Puti asked Wukong how his studies of flight were progressing. "Thanks to your instruction, I have completed my training and can now soar across the heavens," Wukong said. "Then show me." So Wukong summoned all his skills, did a few somersaults, and leaped about 6 yards into the air. In the time it took to complete a meal, he had flown about a mile and back. When he landed, he said, "Master, that was me soaring among the clouds." Puti chuckled. "That was not soaring among the clouds. At best, you were crawling among the clouds. As the ancient saying goes, immortals visit the North Sea in the morning and reach Cangwu by night." What does that mean? Those who can truly soar among the clouds can start from the North Sea in the morning, make their way to the East Sea, West Sea, and South Sea, and then return by night to Cangwu, which is a location in the North Sea. It means that you must be able to travel the 4 seas in one day to truly qualify as soaring among the clouds. "That sounds really hard," Wukong said. "There are no hard tasks as long as you are persistent," Puti replied, quoting a fortune cookie that he just ate. Wukong kowtowed and said, "Master, if you're going to do someone a favor, you should be thorough. Please exercise your compassion and teach me how to soar among the clouds. I will never forget your kindness. Puti told him, when immortals soar among the clouds, they usually stamp their feet to take off. But you are different. I saw that just now, you used a few somersaults to take off. So, I will lean into that and teach you the somersault cloud. After Wukong thanked him again, Puti instructed him, make the sign, recite the magic spell, clench your fist, give your body a shake, and leap. One somersault will take you 108,000 leagues. One li, by the way, is about 1/3 of a mile, so one somersault would cover about 36,000 miles. For context, the width of the continental US is about 2,800 miles. So that's a hell of a somersault. When all the other disciples heard their master explain the power of this method of flight, they all laughed and said, what great fortune for Wukong. If he can master this skill, then he will never have trouble finding work as a courier. I would think that somebody who can live forever, transform into 72 things, and cover immense distances in one leap won't exactly have to worry about scrounging a living. But anyway, after everyone else retired for the night, Wukong practiced his new knowledge all night and mastered the somersault cloud. Couple that with eternal life, and he now enjoyed a truly boundless, worry-free existence. One day, as spring blended into summer, all the disciples were sitting under some pine trees and shooting the breeze. Some of them asked Wukong, hey, how come you have all the luck? Some days back, our master whispered to you the secret to transformations for dodging the 3 calamities. Have you learned them all? Wukong chuckled. To tell you the truth, thanks to our master's instruction and my diligent practice, I've learned all those tricks. Well then give us a demonstration, everyone said. Eager to show off a bit, Wukong told them, please tell me what you want me to turn into. How about a pine tree? So Wukong uttered a spell, twisted his body, and sure enough, he morphed into a pine tree that looked like the real thing. Everybody clapped and laughed, cheering him on. But all the noise they were making disturbed Patriarch Puti, and he came outside and asked, who's making all that racket? Everyone hurriedly tidied up their clothing and paid their respects. Wukong turned back into his true form and joined them as well, explaining, Master, we were just discussing the Tao, nothing else. You all were shouting in a fashion most unbecoming of students of the Tao, Puti scolded them. When one opens their mouth, the divine air dissipates. When one wags their tongue, trouble ensues. Why were you all making so much noise? The other disciples said, Master, to tell you the truth, Wukong was showing off his powers of transformation. We asked him to turn into a pine tree, and sure enough, he did just that. We were cheering him on, and accidentally disturbed you. Please, forgive us. Puti now dismissed everyone except Wukong. Once they were alone, he asked his star pupil, why were you showing off your skills? Is that what these powers are for? If you saw a skill that someone else possessed, would you not ask them to teach you? And if someone else saw your skills, they would surely ask you to teach them as well. If you teach it to them, then it would plant the seed for trouble. But if you don't, then they will try to harm you out of spite, and your life would be in danger. Master, please forgive me, Wukong apologized as he kowtowed. I won't hold it against you, but you should leave, Puti said. Well, that seems like a rather harsh punishment for supposedly not holding anything against him. This instantly reduced Wukong to tears, and he asked, Master, where would you have me go? Go back too, from whence you came. I came from the Water Curtain Cave on Flower and Fruit Mountain. It's near the kingdom of Aolai on the eastern continent. Then go back there at once, and I will spare you, Puti commanded. But you must not linger here. Master, I have been away from home for 20 years, and I do miss my little monkeys, but I dare not leave here before repaying your immense kindness. There is no need to speak of repayment. Just don't cause any trouble for me, and that will be payment enough. Seeing that he had no choice, Wukong kowtowed and took leave of his master and fellow disciples. But before he departed, Huti gave him one more warning. Once you leave, you will no doubt cause trouble. Whatever wicked deeds you commit, you must not tell anyone that you are my pupil. If you let so much as have a word slip about that, I will find out, and I will flay you, pierce your bones, and pin your soul so deep in hell that you will never see the light of day. I would never dare to mention you, Wukong promised. I would just say that I taught myself these skills. And with that, he thanked his master once more, and then summoned the somersault cloud and flew back toward the east. Within a couple hours, Flower and Fruit Mountain was within sight. He couldn't help but say to himself in amazement, I left weighed down by bones of mortal stock. The Tao attained makes light both body and frame. 'Tis the world's pity that none firmly resolves to learn such mystery that by itself is plain. 'Twas hard to cross the seas in former time. Returning this day, I travel with ease. Words of farewell still echo in my ears. I never hoped to see so soon the eastern depths. Soon, he descended from the clouds onto the mountain and started walking. But suddenly, he heard the sad cries of monkeys, so he shouted, Little ones, I'm back! Instantly, thousands of monkeys emerged from all around. They surrounded him, kowtowed, and cried, Great King, how could you have left us for so long? We were stuck here yearning for you. Recently, a demon has been bullying us and trying to seize our cave. We've been risking our lives to fight him, but he managed to take a lot of our stuff and capture a lot of us. We've been restless trying to protect what is ours. Thank goodness you're back. If you delayed any longer, our cave would belong to someone else. Wukong flew into a rage and asked, What kind of demon dares to be so rude? Tell me in detail, and I will go pay him back. That scoundrel calls himself the Demon King of Chaos. He lives to the north of here, his monkey troop told him. And how far away does he live? Whenever he comes and goes, he's accompanied by clouds, mist, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning, so we don't know how far he traveled. In that case, no need to fear. Just hang out here and I will go find him, Wukong reassured his clan. He then took to the air and flew north. Before long, Wukong came upon a treacherous-looking tall peak. Just as he was scoping it out, he heard someone talking. He descended onto the mountain and saw a cavern under a cliff that was named Water Belly Cave. In front of the cave, a few demon lackeys were dancing and prancing. When they saw Wukong coming, they turned and ran. Stop! Wukong barked. Relay a message for me. I am the master of the Water Curtain Cave on Flower and Fruit Mountain to the south. That demon bastard of chaos has been bullying my little ones, so I have come to have it out with him. The demon lackeys rushed inside their cave and relayed the challenge to their leader. The Demon King of Chaos laughed. I have often heard those little monkey demons say that they have some king who left to go pursue the Tao. I guess he's back now. What does he look like? What kind of weapon does he wield? He didn't have any weapons, the lackeys reported. He's bald and wears a red shirt tied at the waist with a yellow sash, and he had on a pair of black boots. He doesn't look like a mortal, sage, or god. He's just shouting his challenges while standing outside, barehanded. Then bring me my armor and weapon, the Demon King of Chaos ordered. Once he donned his armor, he took his cutlass in hand and led his gang of demon lackeys out of the cave. Who is the leader of the Water Curtain Cave? The Demon King shouted. Wukong took a close look at his foe and saw that he was quite tall and had a round waist. He wore a dark gold helmet, black battle robe, black armor, and pleated boots, looking quite a fearsome warrior. He wielded a big cutlass with a shimmering blade. Well, we know all the skills that Sun Wukong had learned. To see how he will fare in his first real test, tune in to the next episode of the Chinese Lore Podcast. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Chinese Lore Podcast, where I retell classic Chinese stories in English. This is episode 4 of Journey to the West. Last time, the Monkey King received the name Sun Wukong and learned a huge bag of tricks from Patriarch Pu Ti, like the secret to eternal life, the 72 transformation, and the power of flight. When Pu Ti kicked him out of the sanctuary, for seemingly rather specious reasons, Sun Wukong returned to his home on Flower and Fruit Mountain, only to find that his clan of monkeys were being harassed by a demon calling himself the Demon King of Chaos. So, Wukong went to settle the score against this giant of a foe. When the Demon King came out of his cave and asked where his foe was, Wukong shouted, "Hey, your eyes are huge enough, how come they can't see me?" Sizing up his opponent, the Demon King laughed. "You're not even 4 feet tall and not even 30 years old, and you have no weapons. How dare you challenge me?" "You damn demon! Turns out you're blind!" Wukong cursed. "You think I'm small? Well, it won't be hard for me to get big. You scoffed I have no weapons? Well, my fists are big enough to cover the moon. Come have a taste." As he spoke, he leaped forward and started swinging. The Demon King parried a couple of punches and chuckled. "Look at how short you are and how tall I am, and you're using your fists while I have a cutlass. Even if I killed you with my cutlass, people would mock me. Let me set it aside and trade some fisticuffs with you." "That sounds reasonable. Good man, let's go," Wukong said. Wukong charged right into him, and they started to go at it. Well, the Demon King had the longer reach, but it was easy to miss with those long swings. Wukong, meanwhile, got right up into him and landed a few firm jabs on his chest and ribs. Smarting from those punches, the Demon King decided it was time to stop being gracious. He now picked up his cutlass again and swung at Wukong's head. Wukong quickly dodged the swing. Seeing how vicious his foe was coming on, Wukong now plucked a handful of hairs from his own body, chewed them up in his mouth, sprayed them into the air, and shouted, "Change!" Instantly, the fur turned into about 300 little monkeys. This was another one of the magic powers that Wukong had picked up during his studies. Every one of the 54,000 hairs on his body could be turned into whatever he wished. In this case, that was monkeys. Lots and lots of little monkeys. They were all incredibly nimble, able to dodge any attacks. They now surrounded the Demon King and started pulling, tugging, tickling, kicking, poking his eyes, pinching his nose. You name it, they did it. While the Demon King was spinning all around, trying to fend off this simian swarm, Wukong seized his cutlass, told his little monkeys to get out of the way, and brought the blade down on his foe's head. In the blink of an eye, the Demon King had been sliced in half from top to bottom. Wukong now led his gang of monkeys into the Demon King's cave and slaughtered all the demon lackeys. This bloody conquest completed, he undid his magical spell, and all the little monkeys reverted back to hairs on his body. But there were still about 50 monkeys in the cave. As it turns out, these were the ones that the demons had captured during their previous raids. These monkeys wept and told Wukong, "After you left, we had been harassed by the demons, and they abducted us, along with a bunch of our stone basins and bowls. Look at all the stuff that they took from us." "Well, since it's our stuff, let's carry them outside," Wukong ordered. Once they had done so, he started a fire in the cave and reduced everything inside to ashes. He then told the other monkeys to follow him home. "Great King, when we were brought here, we could only hear the wind whooshing past our ears," they said. "We don't know how to get home." "That was the demon's magic. It's no big deal," Wukong said. "Now, I know all the tricks. Just close your eyes, don't be afraid." And then he uttered a spell, and a huge gale whipped up. When the wind died down, he shouted, "Little ones, open your eyes." When the other monkeys opened their eyes, they saw that they were indeed back home on Flower and Fruit Mountain. Ecstatic, they dashed back to their cave and reunited with their comrades. They then welcomed their king back in style. He regaled them with the tale of how he vanquished the Demon King of Chaos, and they all praised him. He told them, "After I left here, I followed wherever the tides took me and drifted across the East Sea. I went to the southern continent, learned to emulate humans, wore their clothing, and walked around for 8 or 9 years without having learned anything about the Tao. Then, I traversed the West Sea and arrived on the western continent. After much searching, I met a sage who taught me the secret of immortality." What incredible good fortune, the monkeys rejoiced. Oh, also, he added, we all have a family name now. My last name is Sun, and my Taoist name is Wukong. The monkeys all cheered at this news, and they said, if the great king is the elder Sun, then we are all junior Suns, the Sun family, the Sun nation, the Sun cave. They all paid their respects to elder Sun with coconut and grapevines, as well as flowers and fruits. From that day forth, Sun Wukong drilled his troop of monkeys in martial skills and instructed them to make weapons from bamboo and wood. They also made banners and set up camps and scouts. So now, not only does this clan of magic monkeys have a governing apparatus like that of a human imperial court, they were also building an army. One day, Sun Wukong said to his minions, what we're doing here might alarm the leaders of men and beasts. They might think that we're trying to stage a revolt, which might prompt them to attack us. All we have are bamboo and wood weapons. How can we go up against them? We must have real weapons, but how? So, back up a sec. You're a troop of monkeys living on an island in the middle of an ocean. Who exactly would you rebel against? Whose governance were you under to begin with? But, never mind that, all the monkeys panicked when they heard what Sun Wukong had said. Great King, you're quite right, but where can we get weapons? They asked. Just then, 4 old monkeys came forth. These were 2 female monkeys with red bottoms and 2 gibbons with bare backs. They said, Great King, if you want sharp weapons, that's not so hard. How so? If you go east from here and cross over about 70 miles of water, you will be in the kingdom of Aolai. They have a king, and the city has countless soldiers and civilians. There must be some blacksmiths there. You can go there and buy some weapons or have some made, and then train us on how to use it to defend our mountain. That would ensure our long-term security. Wukong was delighted at this suggestion, so he told his troop to hang tight while he took a little trip. He then summoned a somersault cloud and arrived above the capital of Aolai. And just as his senior advisors had told him, it was a bustling city with tens of thousands of people going to and fro. There must be weapons here, Wukong thought to himself. But why buy them when I can just use a little magic and steal some? So he muttered a spell and blew a breath toward the ground. All of a sudden, a wild gale whipped up, sweeping sand and pebbles into the air. Everyone ran for cover and hid indoors. Once the street had emptied, Wukong descended from the clouds, strode through the palace, and found the armory. When he opened the doors, he was greeted with countless weapons of every type. How many weapons can I carry by myself? He thought to himself. I need to use a little duplication magic here. So, he pulled a handful of fur off himself, chewed it up, spat it out, muttered a spell, and shouted, "Change!" The hairs turned into thousands of little monkeys, and each one of them grabbed as many weapons as it could. Wukong then flew up back into the sky, changed the direction of the wind that he had summoned, and brought all the little monkeys back home with him. All the real monkeys back on Flower and Fruit Mountain were just horsing around when they suddenly heard the sound of winds whooshing all around, followed by a torrent of little monkeys descending from the sky. The real monkeys were scared and ran for cover. Momentarily, Wukong descended, gave his body a shake, and all the little monkeys turned back into hairs on him. In their wake, they left a giant pile of weapons. "Little ones, come get your weapons!" Wukong shouted. All the monkeys came running back out and asked how he had come by such a bounty. Wukong told them, "Oh, I used a little magic and stole them." All the monkeys praised his powers and then went to squabble over who got which shiny, deadly toy, which occupied them for the rest of the day. The next day, they pitched camp like a real army. Wukong counted up their numbers, and they totaled more than 47,000. That's a whole lot of armed monkeys, and this did not escape the notice of all the other wild beasts on the mountain. A lot of these animals were demons as well, and there were 72 other demon kings who ruled their own caves on this mountain that's apparently full of holes. They all now came to pay their respects to Sun Wukong, recognizing him as their king of kings and agreeing to pay him tribute on the regular. Some even joined the monkeys in their military exercises and provided provisions. So, this troop of monkeys who were living in what seemed like paradise on Earth had now reorganized their society into some facsimile of a human monarchy and turned themselves into an imperialistic military power. Way to go. One day, while the monkeys were again having fun putting on military exercises, Wukong said to them, "You all have become handy with your weapons, but this cutlass of mine is too cumbersome. I'm not happy with it. What should I do?" His 4 senior advisors had an answer for this too. "Great King, since you are an immortal, common weapons are not suitable for you. But can you go underwater?" After I started cultivating the Tao, I attained the power of the 72 transformation, and I can soar with the clouds. I can disappear at will and go wherever I want, be it up into the heavens, down into the earth, following the sun and moon, or entering metals or rocks. Water cannot soak me, and fire cannot burn me. Where can I go? So we'll take that as a yes. "Since you have such powers," the old monkey said, "the water that flows under our bridge leads straight to the Dragon Palace under the East Sea. If you're willing to go there, you can seek out the old Dragon King and ask him for a weapon. Won't that be great?" "I'll be right back," an excited Wukong said as he rushed to the bridge, cast a spell that allowed him to breathe underwater, and leaped off the bridge. He swam all the way to the bottom of the East Sea. There, he encountered a yaksha, which is a type of nature spirits that show up in Buddhist, Hindu, or Jain mythology. In the universe of the Journey to the West and other Chinese literature of the same canon, they were servants to the Dragon Kings that ruled various bodies of water. Those of you who listen to the Investiture of the Gods on this podcast might remember that Lotus Boy Ne-Zha killed one of these yakshas, starting some serious beef with the Dragon King. Wukong's encounter with the yaksha went much better. The yaksha blocked his path, but asked nicely who he was so that the yaksha could properly announce his arrival. "I am Sun Wukong, a sage from Flower and Fruit Mountain," the Monkey King said. "I am your old Dragon King's near neighbor. How come you don't recognize me?" Hearing this, the yaksha rushed into the Crystal Palace and said to the Dragon King, "My lord, there's a sage from Flower and Fruit Mountain outside named Sun Wukong. He said that he's your near neighbor. He's approaching." Now, this Dragon King's name was Ao Guang. He held dominion over the East Sea and was the eldest of the 4 Dragon Kings who oversaw the 4 seas. He's also the same Dragon King that Ne-Zha had offended in Investiture of the Gods. But that's all ancient history at this point. He now got up and went outside with his family and his officers and guards to welcome his visitor, and they invited Wukong into the palace. Once he offered his guests a seat and tea, Ao Guang asked, "Great Immortal, when did you attain the Tao? What kind of powers do you wield?" "After I was born, I followed the Tao and made myself immortal," Wukong said. "Recently, I've been training my little ones to protect our cave, but I didn't have any weapons. I have long heard that you, good neighbor, are living the high life in this gorgeous palace. I figure you must have lots of powerful weapons, so I came to ask for one." Well, the Dragon King was not exactly thrilled with Wukong just dropping by to bum a magic weapon from him, but he also thought it would look bad to refuse. So he ordered his Mandarin Fish commander to present a large cutlass to his guest, but Wukong said, "I don't know how to use a cutlass. Please give me something else." Okay, so Ao Guang told a couple of his strong eel guards to bring out a 9-pronged pitchfork. Wukong picked it up, twirled it around for a bit, set it down, and said, too light, and it doesn't feel right. Please give me something else." Ao Guang chuckled. "Great Immortal, you may not realize it, but that pitchfork weighs 3,600 caddies. A caddy, by the way, is a Chinese unit of measurement for weight, and it's about 1.3 pounds, so 3,600 caddies were more than 4,700 pounds. But Wukong was not impressed, and he insisted on something else. Ao Guang was wary of him, and ordered his carp commander to bring out a halberd that weighed more than 9,500 pounds. Wukong picked this up, swung it around a few times, and stuck it into the ground, saying, "It's still too light, too light." Ao Guang was getting worried now. Great Immortal, he said. That's the heaviest weapon I have. But Wukong refused to take no for an answer. He laughed. The ancient said, the Dragon King of the Sea has no shortage of treasure. Go take another look. If you find something good, give it to me. But I don't have anything else, a frustrated Ao Guang said. Just then, his wife and daughter pulled him aside and said, this immortal looks like he's no ordinary character. In our sea, we do have that piece of magic metal used to measure the depth of the heavenly river. In recent days, it's been glowing. Could it be due to the coming of this immortal? But that piece of metal was used by the ancient sage King Yu to measure the depth of the rivers and seas when he was bringing the floods under control, Ao Guang said. What use could it be as a weapon? Who cares if this guy can use it or not, his wife said. Just give it to him. He can refashion it however he sees fit. Just get him out of here. And by the way, the Sage King Yu that Ao Guang just mentioned was one of the legendary ancient sage rulers in Chinese mythology. His greatest accomplishment was that he managed to quell the floods of the Yellow River that were plaguing the people. For this legendary feat of hydraulic engineering, he was tapped by the previous ancient sage king to be the successor to the throne. But then, he passed the throne to his own son, starting the first Chinese dynasty, the Xia. Anyway, the Dragon King now told Wukong about this piece of metal, and Wukong asked him to bring it out. Oh, it's too heavy to move, Ao Guang said. You have to go see it for yourself. So Wukong had him lead the way. As they approached, they saw that the metal was indeed glowing and emitting beams of golden light. That's it right there, the glowing thing, Ao Guang said as he pointed. Wukong pulled up his sleeves, approached the metal, and put his hands on it. It was a huge, round metal column, more than 2 yards tall and thick as a barrel. Wrapping his arms around the column, Wukong said, this is a bit too thick and too long. It needs to be shorter and narrower. No sooner had those words left his mouth did the column suddenly shrink a few feet and become narrower. How strange. Wukong tried it out again and said, it would be even better if it's narrower still. And on command, the metal shrank again, and now it was just to his liking. He picked it up and saw that it had a golden band around each end. In the middle was a section of black steel, engraved with the characters that said, Compliant Golden Band Rod. And this has also been called a cudgel in some translations. This thing weighed more than 17,850 pounds. Finally, Wukong had found something to his liking. This treasure must do whatever I wish, he thought to himself. As he walked, he muttered again, it would be even better if it was just a bit narrower and shorter. And by the time he got outside, the rod was now just a couple yards long and about the thickness of a small bowl. Wukong now started twirling it in the Crystal Palace. The sight of this struck fear into the heart of the Dragon King and his kids, while his turtle minions hid their heads in their shells and his guards all ran for cover. After having sufficient fun with his new toy, Wukong sat down in the Dragon King's throne with the rod in hand and said to his host while smiling, Thank you, good neighbor, for your gift. Oh, it's nothing, don't mention it, Ao Guang replied, ready to see his uninvited guest out. But Wukong said, This rod is nice, but I have another request. Oh god, what now? Ao Guang asked with trepidation. If you didn't have this rod, that's one thing, Wukong said, but now that I have this weapon, I am missing a suitable outfit to match. If you have armor, give me a suit, and I will thank you double. I don't have any armor, Ao Guang said. Look, a good guest does not bother a second host, Wukong said. If you don't give me a suit of armor, then I'm not leaving. Please go to another sea, they might have some. Visiting 3 houses is not as good as sitting in one, Wukong insisted. Please, find a way to give me some armor. But I really don't have any. If I did, I would give it to you, Ao Guang protested. If you really don't have any to give me, then I'll have to give you a taste of this rod, Wukong threatened. Ao Guang panicked and pleaded, Great Immortal, please don't. Let me check with my brothers. Maybe they have some to give you. Where are your brothers? They are the Dragon Kings of the South, North, and West Seas. I don't want to go to all those places. As the saying goes, having 2 things in hand is better than being promised 3. Just find something and give it to me. You don't need to go anywhere. I have a steel drum and golden gong here. I use them to signal my brothers in case of emergency, and they will arrive momentarily. Well, in that case, hurry up and bang the drum and ring the gong. So the Dragon King quickly dispatched an alligator general to go ring the gong and a turtle general to go beat the drum. And just as he promised, his 3 brothers showed up outside the palace within moments. Brother, what's going on? The Dragon King of the South Sea asked. Oh, brother, Ao Guang lamented. Some sage from Flower and Fruit Mountain showed up, calling me his neighbor and begging me for a weapon. He complained about everything I showed him being too light, and then he took the magic mellow that was used to measure the depth of the heavenly river. And now he's squatting in my palace, demanding some armor. I don't have any, so I invited you here. If you have any armor, give him a set so I can get him to leave. The Dragon King of the South Sea was irate when he heard this. Let's summon our troops and capture him, he said. Capture him? Capture him? Ao Guang scoffed. That magic rod he has, if it hits you, you'll die. If it even grazes you, it will leave a mark. The Dragon King of the West Sea now chimed in. Since we can't fight him, let's just give him some armor and get him out of here. Then we can go to heaven and lodge a complaint so that the Jade Emperor can take care of him. Quite right, the Dragon King of the North Sea agreed. I have a pair of cloud-stepping boots right here. And I have a suit of golden armor with me, the Dragon King of the West Sea said. And I have a phoenix wing purple gold helmet, the Dragon King of the South Sea added. Well, it sure was convenient that each of Ao Guang's brothers seems to travel with a single piece of armor as a rule, just for the heck of it. And it's even more convenient that they all travel with different pieces of armor that combine to form a full set. They now went inside and presented this suit of armor to Sun Wukong. He put it on and then stomped out of the palace while twirling his rod, shouting back to the Dragon Kings, "Sorry for the trouble!" And then he disappeared. Back in the Water Curtain Cave on Flower and Fruit Mountain, the 4 old monkeys and all the rest of the troop were waiting by the bridge when suddenly Sun Wukong leaped out of the water, but with not a single drop on him. Glowing with a golden aura, he walked onto the bridge. All the monkeys kneeled and welcomed him, praising his appearance. With his face glowing, Wukong ascended his throne and put his rod down. The other monkeys tried to pick it up to check it out, but they were like a swarm of dragonflies trying to lift a tree, and the rod did not budge at all. Wow, where did you get something this heavy? They asked. Wukong stepped forth, picked up the rod with ease, and chuckled. Everything has its rightful owner. This treasure had been hidden under the sea for who knows how long. Recently, it started glowing. That Dragon King thought it was some piece of metal for measuring the depth of the sea. They couldn't move it, so they asked me to go get it myself. It was really tall and really thick, but as soon as I picked it up and wished for it to be shorter and narrower, it started to shrink until it was the right size. It has a name engraved on it, the Compliant Golden Band Rod. It weighs more than 17,850 pounds. Stand aside and watch me make it change. He then held the rod in his hand and said, "Smaller, smaller, smaller." And on cue, the rod shrank until it was the size of a sewing needle, small enough for him to hide it in his ear. "Great King, bring it back out again!" his minions shouted. So he took out the needle, put it in his palm, and said, "Larger, larger, larger!" And the rod expanded back to its weapon-ready size. Wukong then walked outside the cave, held the rod in his hand, bent his back slightly, and shouted, "Grow!" At that, he grew to an immense size, tens of thousands of yards tall. His head was the size of a mountain. His back was like a peak. His eyes glowed like lightning. His mouth was a blood-red basin, and his teeth were like swords and halberds. The rod in his hand grew accordingly and seemed big enough to reach the tallest tiers of heaven and the deepest levels of hell at the same time. All the wild animals and demon kings on the mountain were awed and frightened, and they fell to their knees. A few moments later, Wukong shrank back down to his normal size, shrank his rod back to the size of a needle, and tucked it back inside his ear for safekeeping. He then returned to his cave, greeted by the other awestruck demon kings. So now, Sun Wukong was literally king of his own hill, not to mention the owner of a powerful weapon and a spiffy suit of armor. To see which other neighbors he will drop in on, tune in to the next episode of the Chinese Lore Podcast. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Chinese Lore Podcast, where I retell classic Chinese stories in English. This is episode 5 of Journey to the West. Last time, Sun Wukong imposed himself on the Dragon King of the East Sea and ended up with an awesome magical golden rod for a weapon and a fancy suit of armor. Upon returning to Flower and Fruit Mountain with his new gear, he received even more respect and congratulations than before. He also started codifying his burgeoning governing apparatus even more. He named 4 old monkeys as top generals and put them in charge of setting up military camps and laying down rules for rewards and punishments. Having handed off the self-manufactured burdens of governance, Sun Wukong was now free to tour all corners of the realm every day, visiting other heroes and warriors, showing off his skills, and making friends. In time, he became sworn brothers with 6 other supernatural beings. These included the Demon Ox King, the Demon Dragon King, the Demon Garuda King, the Giant Lynx King, the Macaque King, and the Orangutan King. This band of 7 brothers made merry near and far every day, so life was good. One day, Sun Wukong played host to his 6 sworn brothers. They slaughtered oxen and horses to offer sacrifices to heaven and earth, danced and sang wildly with their fellow demons, and partied until they were all nice and hammered. Once his 6 brothers left, Sun Wukong partied again with his own monkey troop. At the end of the day, he was partied out. He fell asleep under the shade of a pine tree next to a steel bridge in his cave, while his 4 senior monkey generals and their guards quietly stood watch around him. As he was deep in his slumber, Sun Wukong suddenly saw 2 figures approaching. They carried a warrant with his name on it. They came up to him, and before he said anything, they threw a rope around him and dragged his soul away. As he drunkenly stumbled and followed, they came to a walled city. By now, Sun Wukong was starting to sober up. He looked up and saw a metal placard above the gates to the city, and it said, "The Netherworld." Sun Wukong snapped to his senses and said, "The Netherworld is the domain of the King of Death. What am I doing here?" His 2 escorts told him, "Your allotted time in the world of the living is at an end. We have been ordered to bring you here." "I have transcended life and death. I am beyond the jurisdiction of the King of Death. How can you be so dim-witted that you would dare to apprehend me?" The 2 escorts were like, "Look, we're just punching the clock and following orders here." So they kept pulling on the rope to try to yank him into the city. But that riled up Wukong. He took out the magical golden rod that he had shrunken and tucked inside his ear, enlarged it to its usual size, and flattened his 2 escorts into puddles of meat paste. He then threw off his binds and stormed into the city of the dead with rod in hand and started making a mess of things. All the ghost lackeys ran for cover, and some dashed to the palace to report what happened. Now, instead of 1 King of Death, there were actually 10 Kings of Death. And if you remember from the end of Investiture of the Gods, the General Flying Tiger from that novel was put in charge of the underworld, which made it sound like he was the only guy in charge. But in Journey to the West, he was just one member of a 10-person board. Anyway, these 10 kings of the underworld got word that havoc was being wrought by someone who looked like a furry-faced version of the god of thunder, which, by the way, sounds a lot like a reference to Thunderbolt from Investiture of the Gods. So, they hurriedly came out to have a look. When they saw how vicious Sun Wukong was, they quickly lined up in order of rank and shouted, "Great Immortal, please tell us your name." "I am Sun Wukong, a sage from the Water Curtain Cave on Flower and Fruit Mountain. Who the hell are you?" "We are the 10 kings of the Netherworld. Hurry up and tell me your names and I will spare you a beating." So the 10 kings introduced themselves, then Sun Wukong scolded them. "Since you all were made kings of this place, you must have some ounce of intelligence. How come you don't know any better? I have cultivated my Tao and attained immortality. I am as eternal as heaven and beyond the bounds of life and death. Why did you send summoners to bring me here?" "Great Immortal, please calm down," the king said. "Lots of people share the same name. Maybe our summoners just made a mistake?" "Bullcrap! Bullcrap!" Wukong scoffed. "As the proverb says, officials err, clerks err, but the summoners never err. Bring me the registers of birth and death so I can have a look." So apparently, the kings of the underworld have paper ledgers with the names of every creature that has ever lived, listed with their predetermined lifespan. And with Sun Wukong threatening them with a taste of his magic rod, they did not dare to refuse his demand. While he sat down on the throne in the palace, the 10 kings ordered the guys in charge of the registries to bring out the appropriate volumes. Wukong flipped through these ledgers one by one. He was not listed in the volumes for short-haired creatures, furry creatures, winged creatures, crawling creatures, or scaly creatures. As it turns out, monkeys had their own ledger because they resembled humans and animals but did not fully belong with either. So I guess this was the ledger for the Uncanny Valley. After a while, Wukong found his name listed under the heading Soul Number 1350. He was described as a heaven-born stone monkey destined to live for 342 years before a peaceful death. "The hell with the age number, let me just cross out my name altogether," Wukong scoffed. "Bring me a brush." So the judge in charge of the books brought him a brush and personally made some ink for him on the inkstone. Wukong crossed out his name, and while he was at it, he crossed out all the other names in this ledger of monkeys. So he just gave eternal life to every fellow member of the simian race, I guess. "Done! Now we are beyond your jurisdiction," he said as he tossed the ledger aside and stormed out of the underworld, making another mess with his rod on the way out. As he was leaving though, he suddenly tripped and fell and startled awake. Turns out, it was all just a dream. Or was it? "Great King, you drank a ton and slept all night," he heard his 4 senior monkey generals shout to him. "It's time to wake up." Sun Wukong got up and recounted his dream, and all the monkeys in his troop kowtowed to thank him for making them all immortal. Hey, another reason to party! And so he did, as he resumed his daily merrymaking with his monkeys and demon friends. Meanwhile, up in the Palace of Heaven, the Jade Emperor was holding court one day when one of his officials reported, "Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea, is outside seeking an audience." The Jade Emperor summoned him in, and the Dragon King presented a petition which said, "Your minor dragon official of the East Sea from the world below respectfully informs your highness. Recently, a demon from the Water Curtain Cave on Flower and Fruit Mountain, Sun Wukong, bullied me and refused to leave my abode until I gave him a weapon and a suit of armor. He wounded and frightened my guards, and my brothers and I had no choice but to bow to his demands. I gave him a magic rod and a suit of armor. He then showed off his skills and was invincible. We had no way to tame him. I beg your highness to dispatch your heavenly soldiers to bring this demon to heel and restore peace to our seas." After reading the petition, the Jade Emperor told the Dragon King, "You may return to your sea. I will send some generals to apprehend this demon." No sooner had the Dragon King left did another official report that the leader of the 10 Kings of Death was waiting outside. When this guy was summoned in, he presented a petition that said, "Our realm is the underworld. Just as there are gods in heaven, there must be ghosts in the underworld. The yin and the yang must each take its turn. All creatures that live must die. These cycles are the natural way of things and cannot be violated. Yet, Sun Wukong, a demon monkey from the Water Curtain Cave on Flower and Fruit Mountain, refused to obey and viciously killed our summoners, threatened the kings, caused a ruckus, and took his name off the registries of life and death. Now, all monkeys have eternal life. This is an insult to heaven. We beg you to dispatch your divine troops to arrest this demon and restore the proper order of things. Just like he did with the Dragon King, the Jade Emperor told the King of Death that he would take care of it. After the King of Death left, the Jade Emperor asked his court, when was this demon monkey born? How did he attain such powers? Before he finished speaking, his two reconnaissance officers, thousand-mile eyes and favorable wind ears, stepped forth and said, "This is the stone monkey that was born of heaven some 300 years ago. We thought nothing of him at the time, but somewhere along the way, he cultivated his Tao and became a powerful immortal." "Which of our divine generals will go apprehend him?" the Jade Emperor asked. But the person who answered this call was not the general, but one of his civil officials. He was known as the Spirit of the Great White Golden Star, or the Evening Star, or in some translations, Venus. So I'll call him Venus from here on. Venus now kneeled and said to the Jade Emperor, "In all the 3 regions, all creatures endowed with the 9 orifices can cultivate their Tao and attain immortality. Besides, this monkey was born of heaven and earth, of the sun and the moon. He touches the sky and the earth and is nurtured by their essence. He has cultivated his Tao and attained immortality and the powers to tame dragons and tigers. How is he any different from a human being? I hope your highness will exercise compassion on all living things and issue a decree of amnesty. Summon him here to heaven and bestow upon him some minor office so that we can keep him here under our control. If he obeys your commands, then you can reward him in the future. If he disobeys, then you can capture him right here. This would save you from having to mobilize any armies and allow you to recruit an immortal into your service." So for those of you who listened to the podcast when we were covering the water margin, this strategy ought to sound familiar, since this whole amnesty thing was the same approach that the Song Emperor took to solve the headaches caused by the outlaws in that novel. And we see here that the Court of Heaven apparently runs much like the courts of the mortal realm, and that even powerful divine beings are more than happy to resort to such underhanded tactics. The Jade Emperor agreed with Venus's suggestion and ordered him to go deliver the decree of amnesty. So Venus left the Palace of Heaven and descended down to Flower and Fruit Mountain. He made his way to the Water Curtain Cave and told the monkey lackey, "I am an envoy from heaven, bearing a decree from the Jade Emperor inviting your king to heaven. Inform him at once." The message made its way through the multiple levels of monkey guards, and they told Sun Wukong, "There's an old man outside carrying a document. He said he's an envoy from heaven with an imperial invitation for you." Wukong was delighted. "I've been thinking about visiting heaven recently, but now they have sent an envoy to invite me. Show him in." So he tidied up his clothes and went outside to welcome Venus. Once he entered the cave, Venus stood facing south and said, "I am the spirit of Venus. I have come on the command of the Jade Emperor to invite you to heaven to receive an immortal appointment." Wukong smiled and thanked him, and then ordered his monkeys to prepare a feast. But Venus said, "I am here on business and dare not linger. Please come with me now. After you have received your appointment, then we can celebrate." Wukong agreed and told his 4 senior monkeys, "Keep a close eye on our little ones. I am going to check out heaven so that I can bring you all up there to live with me later." This done, Wukong and Venus took to the air and headed for heaven. Well, Wukong's somersault cloud was like warp 9 compared to Venus's quarter impulse speed, so before long, Wukong had left his companion far behind. He arrived alone outside the southern gate of heaven. He was just about to show himself in when he was accosted by a squad of divine guards led by one of the 4 heavenly kings. Now, these 4 heavenly kings were divas. No, not divas as in female performers with a high opinion of themselves, but divas as in powerful celestial beings from Buddhist mythology. However, they also correspond to a set of 4 brothers that we met in the Investiture of the Gods. These were the Mo brothers, who were Jie sect Taoists who fought and died for the wrong side in that novel. They each had a special magical weapon, a sword, an umbrella, a peapod or lute, and a killer mink. At the end of that novel, their spirits were canonized as gods, and so here they were in the service of heaven. The guy that Sun Wukong ran into was named Virudaka, which means growth. He and his guards brandished their weapons and refused to let this simian intruder past. Damn that Venus, wily old scoundrel, Sun Wukong cursed. He invited me here, and yet he also told these guys to block my way with weapons? Just as they were about to come to blows, Venus caught up, and Wukong gave him an earful. You old scoundrel, why did you lie to me? You said that the Jade Emperor issued a decree to invite me here, but then why are these guys blocking the gate and refusing to let me pass? Venus put on a smile and said, Please calm down, great king. You have never been to heaven, and you didn't announce your name. These guards don't recognize you, so how could they let you in? Once you have met the Jade Emperor and received your appointment, then you can come and go at will, and no one would get in your way. Ah, the hell with it. I'm not going in, Wukong pouted. But Venus stopped him from leaving and insisted that he go in. So they approached the gate and Venus declared aloud, Heavenly guards, make way! This is an immortal from the world below. I summoned him here on a decree from the Jade Emperor. So the guards backed off, which convinced Wukong to listen to Venus, and the two of them walked in. As they entered, Wukong feasted his eyes on this literally heavenly realm. The whole place was enveloped in a golden light and red and purple mist. The south gate was made of deep green tiles and adorned with precious jade. Celestial generals stood guard on both sides, every one of them standing tall and erect. Around them were numerous armed gods clad in golden armor. Inside the palace were giant columns decorated with golden scaled dragons and long bridges adorned with soaring phoenixes. The compound was made up of 33 palaces in all, which had a total of 72 large halls. There was a longevity star terrace where exotic eternal herbs and flowers thrived. Everything was gold or jade or some other type of precious material. Anyway, you get the picture. Heaven was a very fancy, shiny place. Venus now led Wukong to the treasure hall of divine mists, where the Jade Emperor usually held court. They entered before they were announced. While Venus kneeled and reported to the Jade Emperor, Wukong just stood and listened. Per your highness's command, Venus said, I have summoned the demon immortal here. Which one is the demon immortal? The Jade Emperor asked from behind the bead curtain that obscured his revered countenance from view. Wukong did a little light bow and said, Here I am, what's up? All the high-bound officials in attendance were mortified by that response, and they scolded Wukong about the impropriety of his answer to the boss of heaven. But said bossman declared, Sun Wukong is a demon immortal from the world below. He has only recently learned the ways of man and does not understand court customs. I will pardon his offense. Thank His Highness, all the bootlicking officials told Wukong in one voice. Thus compelled, Wukong did a deep bow. Now, the Jade Emperor commanded his officials to look into what current vacancies there were in heaven that Wukong could fill. I'm guessing jobs don't open up very often when everyone in the organization is a god. One of his officials, the Martial Star Spirit, came forth with an answer. This guy, by the way, was said to have incarnated himself in such illustrious mortal beings as Jifa, the Martial King, whom we know from Investiture of the Gods, and Guan Yu, the fearsome warrior from the Three Kingdoms. He now said to the Jade Emperor, There are no vacancies anywhere except in the Imperial Stables, which are in need of a supervisor. Well then, let him be a stable supervisor, the Jade Emperor commanded. All the officials again told Wukong to thank the Jade Emperor, which he did. The Jade Emperor then commanded the Wood Star Spirit to show Wukong the way to the stables so he could assume his new office. So let's pause real quick and talk about this appointment that Sun Wukong just got. The Chinese name for this position is Bima Wen, or literally Ban Horse Plague. There are a couple possible explanations for this title. One is that during the Eastern Han Dynasty, which encompassed the first couple centuries AD, stable hands would keep monkeys around in the stables on the belief that they helped keep horses from getting sick. Another version of this explanation was that stable hands would mix horse feed with monkey and horse urine because they believed that helps keep horses healthy. Either way, it's not exactly a flattering title, and in the context of the story here, it basically means something like stable monkey. But Sun Wukong was ignorant of all this. All he knew was that the boss man of heaven had invited him to visit and bestowed upon him an ethereal appointment. So he was delighted and went to the imperial stables. There, he assembled his staff and reviewed the registry of celestial horses, which numbered in the thousands. Wukong loved the horses and made sure that his staff took good care of them. He himself was so diligent that he would often forego sleep to tend to the herd. By day, he played with them, and by night, he took good care of them. The horses, in turn, all took to him as well. And before long, they were all in top-notch condition, thanks to his supervision. Before you knew it, half a month had passed. One day, the staff set up a belated welcome feast for the new boss. As they were toasting each other, Wukong suddenly asked, "Hey, what is this Bima Wen position that I've been appointed to?" "Oh, that's the name of the position," his staff replied. "And what grade is this position?" "No grade," they answered. "No grade? It must be because it's such a high position that it doesn't fall into any grades, right?" Wukong wondered aloud. No, his staff corrected him. "It means it's unclassified." "What does unclassified mean?" "It means it has no grade. This is the lowest and most insignificant of official appointments. You're just tending to the Emperor's horses. Even though you've done such a great job since taking office, all you'll get is an empty compliment. And if you slip up in the slightest, you'll be scolded. And if any horses get injured, you would be punished." When he heard that, Sun Wukong flew into a rage. He grinded his teeth and cursed aloud. "How dare they disrespect me so? I was a king on my mountain. How can they summon me here to raise horses for them? This is a job fit for youngins and underlings, not for me. The hell with this. I quit." As he cursed, he pushed his table over, pulled out his magic rod, and made his usual messy exit as he stormed out through the southern gate. Ironically, the guards there, being aware that he was now an officially appointed civil servant of heaven, did not get in his way and just let him pass. And so, he left in a huff and headed back to Flower and Fruit Mountain. When Sun Wukong landed back on Flower and Fruit Mountain, he saw his 4 senior monkeys and the other demon kings leading their troops in military drills. "Little ones, I'm back!" Wukong shouted. All the monkeys kowtowed to him and welcomed him back inside his cave, where he sat down on his throne and was treated to wine. "Great king, congratulations," his monkeys said. "You've been in heaven for more than a decade. You must have returned in glory." "What do you mean, more than a decade? I was gone for just half a month." "A day up in heaven is a year down in the mortal realm," the monkeys explained. "So, what official position did you get?" Waving his hand dismissively, Wukong vented. "What nonsense! I'm embarrassed to even talk about it. That Jade Emperor doesn't recognize talent. He made me a stable monkey. Turns out it's an unclassified, lowly role, basically just racing horses for him. I didn't realize it when I first took office, but then when I asked my staff, I found out it was such a BS position. I got pissed off, so I quit and came back." "That's great," the monkeys said. "You are the king of this blessed place. Here, you are revered and carefree. Why go be their stable boy? Here, let's have some wine and forget about that nonsense." As they were drinking, word came that there were 2 unicorn demon kings outside. Wukong called them in, and they entered and kneeled. "What do you want?" Wukong asked. We have long heard that you are recruiting talent. We just didn't have any means of introduction. But today, we saw that you have returned in glory after receiving an appointment from heaven. So, we came to present you with a yellow robe as congratulations. Please accept it, and accept us, so that we may render some flight service for you. Wukong was delighted. He put on the robe at once and appointed 2 unicorn demon kings as leaders of his vanguard. After they thanked him, they asked what position he had received from heaven. That prompted Wukong to vent again about the disrespect he had received. When they heard the story, the demon king said, "You possess such powers, how can you be their stable hand? Even if you were to declare yourself great sage equal to heaven, it would not be too much." Wukong was quite fond of that name. He told his 4 senior monkeys, "Make me a new banner immediately. It should say, Great Sage equal to heaven. Fly it high, and from now on, you can't call me Great King anymore. You must only refer to me as Great Sage equal to heaven. And send word around to all the demon kings of the various caves so that they are aware as well." And so, from that day forth, Wukong went by his new self-anointed title, and Great Sage equal to heaven, or just Great Sage for short, would become one of his monikers. While Wukong was busy with the rollout of his rebranding campaign, Heaven was busy getting into a tizzy over his departure. I mean, he didn't even submit a letter of resignation or do an exit interview. What nerve! The Jade Emperor was not amused when he got word of this, and he declared that his generals should lead a celestial army to go inform the simian rogue that nobody quits the celestial civil service. When that order went out, 2 familiar faces came forth and volunteered to take the lead. They were Li Jing, the wielder of the magical pagoda, and his 3rd son, Lotus Boy Ne Zha. As you may remember, we met these 2 in Investiture of the Gods, where they went through a whole family feud that started with a 7-year-old Ne Zha acting like a 7-year-old, and quickly escalated into a war with Dragon Kings, ritual suicide by said 7-year-old, desecration of his temple by his own father, and a whole arc of attempted patricide that was only resolved when a Taoist master gave Li Jing a magical pagoda that he could repeatedly drop on his son until Ne Zha fell in line. The father and son then reconciled, teamed up to help usher in a new dynasty, and then both ascended to godhood. And now, they were serving in the Jade Emperor's Army of Heaven. So Ne Zha has basically gone from being a rebellious troublemaker to being a stooge for the man. Ne Zha and Li Jing were 2 of Heaven's top warriors, so the Jade Emperor was delighted to have them volunteer. He appointed Li Jing as the demon-taming Grand Commander, and gave Ne Zha an equally meaningless but impressive-sounding title as well, and he sent them on their campaign. To see how this battle will go, tune in to the next episode of the Chinese Lore Podcast. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Chinese Lore Podcast, where I retell classic Chinese stories in English. This is episode 6 of Journey to the West. Last time, Sun Wukong put himself on Heaven's radar by making a mess of hell. But instead of punishing him, the Jade Emperor of Heaven was persuaded to take the more devious approach of summoning him to Heaven and giving him a position so that he could be kept under Heaven's watch. It went well for all of 2 weeks, until Sun Wukong found out that he was nothing more than Heaven's stable monkey. He quit in a huff and went back to Flower and Fruit Mountain, at which point Heaven said, "You can't quit," and sent an army led by Li Jing, the pagoda-wielding king, and his son Lotus Boy Ne Zha to go deliver that message. The Celestial Army descended upon Flower and Fruit Mountain and pitched camp on a flat plain, which makes you wonder why an army of divine beings needed to pitch camp like a mortal army. But whatever. The Vanguard General was a giant entity named the Mighty Spirit God, and he was ordered to go seek battle. So he wielded his battle axe and stomped out to the entrance of the Water Curtain Cave. There, he saw numerous demon animals playing around with weapons. You beasts! The mighty spirit god roared. Hurry up and let that stable monkey know that I, a top general from heaven, have arrived on the Jade Emperor's command to arrest him. Tell him to surrender at once, or you all will be maimed or killed. The demon lackeys scrambled into the cave and shouted, "Oh crap! Oh crap!" What's wrong? Wukong asked. There's a divine warrior outside calling you out by name. He said that he's here by the Jade Emperor's decree to arrest you, and that you should surrender at once or we would be killed. Wukong now donned his armor, gripped his golden rod, and led his troops outside. As they lined up in battle formation, their foe, the mighty spirit god, roared at Wukong. You damn monkey! Do you recognize me? Which two-bit god are you? Wukong shot back. I haven't met you, so announce your name. Damn monkey! I bet you don't recognize me. I am the mighty spirit god, the vanguard general under Li Jing, the pagoda-wielding king. I have come on the command of the Jade Emperor to arrest you. Lay down your arms and armor at once and obey heaven, and all your wild beasts won't need to die. But if you utter so much as half a no, I will pound you into dust. You puny god, stop running your big mouth and wagging your long tongue. An irate Wukong cursed. I would kill you with one swing of my rod, but then who would deliver a message for me? So I'll spare you for now. Scram back to heaven and tell that Jade Emperor that he doesn't recognize talent. I have boundless powers. How can he appoint me to race horses for him? Look at my banner. If he bestows that title and position upon me, then I will not mobilize my army, and heaven and earth will know peace. But if he refuses, then I will go smash up his palace, and he won't be able to even sit on his throne. The mighty spirit god looked up in the direction that Wukong pointed in, and he saw a tall flagpole with a huge banner that read, Great Sage equal to heaven. He scoffed. Damn monkey, you really don't know any better. How dare you demand to be called Great Sage equal to heaven? Taste my axe! As he spoke, he raised his axe and swung at Wukong, but Wukong calmly raised his golden rod to counter, and they started to trade blows. Before long, Wukong had his bow on his heels. As Wukong brought his golden rod down toward his head, the mighty spirit god tried to block it with the handle of his axe, and the handle promptly snapped in twain. Scared out of his mind, the mighty spirit god turned and fled, while Wukong laughed. You useless idiot! I already said that I would spare you. Go deliver my message. When the now not-so-mighty spirit god ran back to his camp and reported his defeat, his commander, Li Jing, grew angry and wanted to execute him for his incompetence. But Li Jing's son, Ne said, Father, please calm down and spare him for now. Let me go fight the enemy and check out his powers. Li Jing agreed and sent his son out. Ne now went to the cave and demanded battle. Wukong saw this uncommon-looking young boy, so he went up and asked, Whose kid are you? What are you doing causing a ruckus outside my home? Damn monkey, how can you not know me? Ne shouted. I am Ne, the third son of the pagoda-wielding king. I have come on the Jade Emperor's command to arrest you. Kiddo, you haven't even lost your baby teeth yet, so how dare you make such boasts? Wukong chuckled. I'll spare your life and not fight you. Look at the words on my banner. Go tell the Jade Emperor that if he grants me that title, then I will make peace with him without his needing to mobilize any soldiers. But if he doesn't grant that request, then I will storm into his palace. Ne looked up and saw the Great Sage banner, and he reacted in the same way his predecessor did. What skills could you have, you demon ape, that you would dare to claim such a title? Have a taste of my sword. Oh, I'm just going to stand here and let you have a few good hacks at me, Wukong said, still not taking him seriously. But Ne was now pissed. He shouted, Change! And immediately sprouted 3 heads and 6 arms, with each hand wielding a magic weapon. He now launched a vicious attack on his foe. Now this put Wukong on notice. That boy actually has a trick or two, he thought to himself. No matter, watch me! So he too shouted, Change! And immediately sprouted 3 heads and 6 arms as well. He shook his golden rod and it turned into 3. So with 6 hands wielding 3 rods, Wukong engaged Ne in a dogged fight. After 30 vicious exchanges, neither had the upper hand. But in the midst of the fighting, Wukong plucked out one of his own hairs and shouted, Change! The hair turned into a clone of himself, wielding a golden rod and fighting Ne Zha. But the real Wukong snuck behind Ne Zha and took a swing. Ne Zha could hear the whoosh of the rod coming down, so he tried to duck, but it was too late. The rod caught him on his left shoulder. Grimacing in pain, Ne Zha turned back into his single-headed self and retreated. When Li Jing saw his own son come back injured and defeated, he was stunned. How can we beat this monkey if he is so powerful? He wondered. Ne Zha then relayed Wukong's demand about being officially named Great Sage equal to heaven. Li Jing said, "In that case, let's not fight him anymore for now. Let's return to heaven and relay that message. Then we can mobilize more troops and capture that scoundrel." As this celestial army limped back to heaven, Sun Wukong and all his demon buddies gathered to celebrate. And while they drank, they came up with fancy highfalutin titles for Wukong's 6 demon sworn brothers as well. They all had fun, drank for a whole day, and then parted ways. Up in heaven, the mood was quite different. The Jade Emperor was stunned at his army's defeat and irate over the demand that they had relayed from Sun Wukong. He was talking about sending more troops to bring the demon monkey to heal, but Venus stepped forth and said, "That demon monkey is mouthing off and doesn't know any better. But if we send more troops, we might not be able to tame him quickly, and it would be to our army's detriment. Why not exercise your great compassion again and send another offer of amnesty? Just grant him the title Great Sage equal to heaven and give him an empty promotion." "What do you mean?" the Jade Emperor asked. "Just give him the title, but don't put him in charge of anything, and don't pay him anything. Just keep him around up here in heaven so that he's under control and not tempted to cause trouble. That would ensure peace across the realm." The Jade Emperor agreed to this plan, so once again, he sent Venus to go deliver the amnesty offer. When Venus descended on Flower and Fruit Mountain this time, he noticed that the vibe had changed. The place was now bristling with weapons, as all the demon lackeys were armed and standing guard. As soon as they saw him, they prepared to attack, but Venus said, "Please, go tell the Great Sage that I am an envoy from the Jade Emperor, here with a decree and an invitation for him." When Wukong got word of this, he said, "Perfect, it's probably that Venus from last time. When I went to heaven that time, even though I didn't get a position that I liked, I still managed to learn my way around heaven. This time, he must be bringing good news." So he ordered his lackeys to line up while he went out with his monkeys and shouted, "Old friend, come in! Excuse my lateness in welcoming you." Venus hurried forward, entered the cave, and said, "Great Sage, hear me. After you quit the job at the stables because you felt it was too low a position, the staff reported it to the Jade Emperor. He said, all officials work their way up from lower posts to higher ones. So why is he scorning this post?" Meanwhile, Li Jing and Ne Zha led their troops down here to pick a fight. They had no idea of your powers, so they returned in defeat and reported that you had erected a banner and were demanding to be named Great Sage equal to heaven. The other generals still wanted to wage war against you, but I risked their wrath and spoke up for you. I persuaded the Jade Emperor to grant you the title so as to avoid further warfare. That's why I'm here, to invite you back to heaven. Wukong laughed and said, "Thank you so much, for last time and this time. But does heaven have a position called Great Sage equal to heaven? If I didn't have permission to offer that to you, how would I dare to come here?" Venus said. "If it doesn't turn out well this time, you can blame it all on me." That was good enough for Wukong, who was delighted at the news. Again, he offered Venus a drink, but again, Venus declined on account of needing to report back. So the two of them again flew back up to the southern gate of heaven. This time, the guards welcomed Wukong with respect and escorted him to the treasure hall of divine mists. Venus kneeled and reported to the Jade Emperor, "Your servant has summoned the stable hand Sun Wukong as your highness commanded." The Jade Emperor said, "Sun Wukong, approach. I am appointing you the Great Sage equal to heaven. This is the highest position, but you must not act up again." Wukong bowed and said thanks a lot. The Jade Emperor then commanded 2 of his officials to oversee the construction of a residence for the Great Sage, next to the Imperial Peach Orchard. The place came with a full staff to tend to his needs. He also received 2 bottles of imperial wine and 10 golden flowers. All the swag the Jade Emperor hoped would placate Wukong and keep him from causing more trouble. And it looked like the plan was working. Wukong promptly drank all the wine and seemed quite pleased with his situation. All his needs were tended to by his staff, and since he had no responsibilities, he spent his days visiting various immortals in heaven and getting chummy with all of them, no matter their rank or status. Even the most revered deities would receive a backslapping visit from him while he called them buddy and pal as if they were old acquaintances. One day, while the Jade Emperor held court, one of his officials reported, "The great sage has nothing to do, so he spends his time visiting all the gods of heaven. No matter their rank, he acts as if they are close friends. I worry that eventually trouble will grow out of boredom. You should put him in charge of something, so that he doesn't cause any trouble." Dude, did you forget that the whole point of this plan was to give him a title without responsibilities in order to keep him out of trouble? Alas, apparently the Jade Emperor had forgotten as well, because he summoned Wukong and said, "Since you seem bored, I want to give you a task. I will put you in charge of the immortal peach orchard. Take good care of it." So not only have you forgotten that the whole point was to give Sun Wukong an empty title without actual responsibilities, but the one responsibility you do choose to give this monkey is to watch over ripe, delicious peaches? What could possibly go wrong? Sun Wukong, surprise surprise, was delighted with this assignment. He rushed over to the peach orchard and went inside to inspect the trees. As he entered the orchard, he was met by a local earth spirit. Now, there are lots of these earth spirits hanging around in heaven and on earth. They're fairly low-ranking, low-powered deities who are in charge of the soil in their territories. This particular earth spirit asked Sun Wukong what he was doing in the orchard. "The Jade Emperor has put me in charge of the immortal peach orchard," Wukong explained, "so I have come to inspect it." The earth spirit quickly welcomed him and also summoned the orchard staff to come pay their respects. And then they gave Wukong the tour. As they wound their way through the orchards, Wukong could see that every branch was laden with sumptuous-looking peaches. After a while, he asked the earth spirit, "How many trees are in the orchard?" "There are 3,600 in all," the earth spirit replied. "The 1,200 in the front have small flowers and fruit. Their peaches ripen once every 3,000 years. A mortal who eats one of these peaches will attain an immortal's light body. The 1,200 trees in the middle have layered flowers and sweet fruits that ripen every 6,000 years. Eating one of those peaches will allow you to fly and never grow old. The 1,200 trees in the back have fruits with purple veins and pale yellow pits. They ripen once every 9,000 years. Eat one of those, and you will live as long as heaven and earth, as the sun and the moon." Wukong was delighted upon hearing that explanation. After finishing the inspection tour, he returned to his residence next door. From that day forth, he would visit the orchard once every few days, and he stopped dropping in on other deities. I mean, say what you will, but the guy does take his jobs pretty darn seriously, as all those well-fed horses in the imperial stables could testify. But then one day, he noticed that more than half of the peaches on some of the older trees had ripened. And how's a monkey supposed to resist the temptation of a tree full of ripe peaches? He wanted a taste, but couldn't very well do that with the orchard staff and his own attendants around. But then, an idea came to mind. "You all go wait outside for a while. Let me get some sleep in this pavilion here," he told the staff. And so they all left. After probably striking a "I can't believe that worked" face, Wukong tossed aside his official robe, climbed up a big tree, and plucked a bunch of the largest, ripest peaches, and gorged himself. When he was done, he hopped back down, put his robes back on, met up with his staff, and returned home. A couple of days later, he pulled the same stunt again, and again came away with a belly full of delicious peaches. And if you're keeping count, he's immortal like 3 times over now. What was the secret of eternal life that he picked up from his Taoist master? He's taking his name off the registries in the underworld, and now his weekly feast on peaches of immortality. One day, the Jade Emperor's queen, the Golden Mother, decided to throw a party for all the who's who's in heaven. It was going to be called the Grand Festival of Immortal Peaches. Needless to say, the star attraction of this little gathering would be those juicy immortal peaches from the Imperial Orchard. So she sent 7 fairies, who, according to legend, were her daughters, to go pick peaches from the orchard. When the fairies arrived at the orchard, they found the orchard staff and earth spirit, as well as Sun Wukong's personal attendants, standing watch at the gate. "We have come on the Golden Mother's command to pick peaches for her festival," the fairies informed them. "Please wait a bit," the earth spirit said. "Things are different from past years. The Jade Emperor has appointed the great sage equal to heaven to oversee the orchard. We must inform him before we can let you in." "And where is the great sage?" the fairies asked. "He's inside, but he is sleeping in the pavilion." "In that case, go find him. We can't delay." So the earth spirit accompanied the fairies into the orchard to look for Sun Wukong, but there was no sign of him at the pavilion, only his official robes. They looked all over, but couldn't find him. After searching fruitlessly for a while, the fairies said, "We came here on the Golden Mother's command. Even though we can't find the great sage, we don't dare to go back empty-handed." One of Wukong's attendants told them, "In that case, you can proceed. The great sage is used to making merry. He must have left to go meet up with some friends. You all go pick your peaches, and we'll let him know when he gets back." So the fairies entered the orchard and started picking. They managed to fill a couple baskets in the front orchard and 3 more in the middle orchard. But when they got to the orchard in the back, the one with the premium grade fruits, they saw that there were only a few still green peaches left on those trees. Guess what happened to all the ripe ones? After looking all around for a good while, the fairies spotted a half-red, half-white peach on a branch pointing southward. One of them plucked it off the branch, handed it to a companion, who placed it into her basket. But suddenly, the peach morphed into a scowling monkey, wielding a golden rod and shouting, "What demons are you that you dare to come steal my peaches?" So as it turns out, the reason why no one could find Sun Wukong was that after gorging himself on more peaches, he shrank himself down to about 2 inches tall, found a nice spot under a leaf on one of the trees, turned into a peach, and went to sleep. And he was not amused about having his nap disturbed. The 7 fairies were startled and hurriedly kneeled and said, "Great sage, please calm down. We aren't demons, we are the 7 fairies, sent here by the Golden Mother to pick peaches for a grand festival of immortal peaches. When we arrived, we first met the orchard's earth spirit, but we couldn't find you. We were afraid of delays in completing our errand, so we started picking peaches. Please forgive us." Hearing this, Wukong's frown turned upside down. "Please get up," he told them. "By the way, who is the Golden Mother inviting to her festival?" According to the customs of past festivals, it would be the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, holy monks and arhats from the west, the Guanyin Bodhisattva of the south, the Holy Emperor of Great Mercy of the east, the Immortals of 10 continents and 3 islands, the Dark Spirit of the North Pole, the Great Immortal of the Yellow Horn, Elders from the 5 quarters, Star Spirits of the 5 poles, the 3 Pure Ones, the 4 Diva Kings. And anyway, the fairies rattled off a long list of VIPs, but as far as Wukong could hear, there was one name that was conspicuously missing. "Did she send me an invite?" he asked them. Not that we've heard. But I am the great sage, equal to heaven. Why won't she invite me as an honored guest?" "We just know who's been invited in the past, not who's getting invited this year." "Okay, fair enough," Wukong said. "Go about your business. I'll go find out if I'm getting an invite." But as soon as the 7 fairies turned their backs, Wukong uttered an incantation, pointed at them, and said, "Freeze!" Immediately, all 7 fairies were frozen in place with eyes open but unable to speak or move. Wukong then flew out of the orchard and headed to the Jade Pool, the site of the festival. On the way to the festival site, Wukong suddenly saw another god, the Barefoot Immortal. "Hey buddy, where are you going?" Wukong asked. "I've been invited by the Golden Mother to attend the grand festival of immortal peaches." "Ah, then you must not have heard. Because I can fly fast, the Jade Emperor has tasked me with informing all the guests that they should first gather at the Hall of Perfect Light to rehearse the ceremonies before going to the festival." The Barefoot Immortal was an honest man, so he had no suspicion that Wukong was up to no good. He just muttered, "We always rehearsed the ceremonies of the Jade Pool in years past. Why are we doing it at the Hall of Perfect Light this year?" Nonetheless, he turned and headed off toward the hall. Wukong now muttered an incantation and assumed the form of the Barefoot Immortal. He then headed to the Jade Pool. When he arrived, he saw that the place had been set up for a grand party, with all sorts of delicacies laid out. No guests had arrived yet, but everything was set up. As he scoped things out, he suddenly caught a whiff of fragrant wine. He followed his nose and came upon a corridor where several celestial brewers and their assistants were busy preparing vessels for the heavenly wine that had been brewed for the occasion. Wukong could feel his mouth watering, but he couldn't just help himself with all these people here. So he discreetly plucked a few hairs off himself, chewed them up, sprayed them out, and muttered, "Change." The chewed up hair turned into tiny sleep-inducing bugs. As soon as they flew onto the faces of the workers, everyone promptly shut their eyes and fell sound asleep. And now, Wukong was free to indulge in all the delicacies. And indulge he did. He tasted all the exotic dishes and then went back to the corridor and chugged more than a few jugs of wine. After this gluttonous feast, he thought to himself, "Uh-oh, if any guests arrive and catch me, what will I do? Let me go sleep this off at home." And so, he drunkenly staggered off, still holding a jug of wine in his arm. But, in his stupor, he took a wrong turn somewhere. Instead of his own house, he came upon the Tusita Palace, the home of Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism. "Hey, this is Lao Tzu's pad. How did I end up here?" Wukong muttered to himself, still waking up from the wine. Just as well. I've been meaning to pay him a visit, but hadn't gotten around to it yet. Since I'm here, let me go say hi. So he tidied up his clothes a bit and went in, but there was no one around. As it turns out, Lao Tzu and Master Burning Lamp were giving a lecture elsewhere, and all their attendants went with them. So Wukong walked around the place until he came upon the alchemy room. This was where Lao Tzu made his immortality pills. The cauldron in which he refined his pills was lit. Next to the cauldron were 5 gourds. Each gourd contained some golden pills. Hey, jackpot! "This is an immortal's treasure," Wukong rejoiced. "Ever since I attained the Tao and became immortal, I've been meaning to make some pills of my own for people. But I haven't had the time since returning home. But what good luck that I found these today. While Lao Tzu is out, let me eat a few of these." And so, he poured out the pills from one gourd after another and gobbled them up like fried beans. So basically, he just added another layer of immortality. By now, he was stuffed full of immortality pills and sobering up. And he realized the magnitude of what he's done. "Oh crap," he said to himself. "This is no small calamity. If I piss off the Jade Emperor, my life might be in danger. Let me get out of here and go back to just being a king in the world below." So he rushed out of Lao Tzu's palace. Instead of retracing his steps, he went to the western gate of heaven, made himself invisible to slip past the guards, and flew back to Flower and Fruit Mountain. Obviously, his actions are gonna have some consequences. To see what kind of consequences, tune in to the next episode of the Chinese Lore Podcast. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Chinese Lore Podcast, where I retell classic Chinese stories in English. This is episode 7 of Journey to the West. Last time, after giving the army of heaven a royal beatdown, Sun Wukong got his wish as the Jade Emperor consented to give him the title Great Sage equal to heaven. But then the Jade Emperor just couldn't leave well enough alone and decided to actually put Sun Wukong in charge of something. And what's worse, he put the Monkey King in charge of a peach orchard. That's what I call being set up to fail, and Sun Wukong promptly did so, at least in his official duty of making sure that nothing happened to the peaches. But he didn't stop at just gobbling up peaches while on the job. When he found out that he had been left off the guest list for the fancy party that the Jade Emperor's wife was throwing, Sun Wukong decided to crash the party ahead of time, eat all the food, drink all the wine, and swallow all the immortality pills that he found lying around the home of the founder of Taoism. All this done, Sun Wukong decided that he maybe just possibly had overstayed his welcome in heaven by a little bit. So he decided to go back down to Flower and Fruit Mountain instead. When he arrived, he saw his monkeys and demon friends running military drills like usual. "Hey little ones, I'm back!" Wukong shouted. All the demons laid down their arms, kneeled, and said, "Great Sage, how could you bear to abandon us for so long?" "Oh, it wasn't that long," Wukong said. Once he went inside his cave, his 4 senior monkey generals came to greet him and asked, "Great Sage, what position did you get during your century in heaven?" "What do you mean a century?" Wukong laughed. "I clearly remember just being there for about half a year." The monkeys reminded him that a day in heaven is like a year down below, so it sure was a good thing that you struck all our names from the registries in the underworld, so that we're all still alive. I was glad that this time the Jade Emperor really did seem to show me favor, Wukong told him. He really granted me the title Great Sage equal to heaven. He built me a home and assigned attendants to serve me. And then later on, when he saw that I had nothing to do, he put me in charge of his immortal peach orchard. Recently, his wife was throwing a grand festival of immortal peaches, but she didn't invite me. So instead of waiting for an invitation, I went and crashed the party and stole all the food and wine. Then, on my way out, I stumbled upon Lao Zi's palace and ate all his elixir pills. I was afraid the Jade Emperor would punish me, so I left heaven. All the demons were delighted to hear his story. They then welcomed him back with wine and fruits, but Wukong took one sip of their homebrew and spat it out. "This is no good, no good," he said. 2 of his senior monkeys said, "Great Sage, you got used to celestial wine and food in heaven, so of course our simple mountain brew is not up to your standards. But as the saying goes, no matter if it's tasty or not, it's still the water of your home." "That's right, and no matter whether we are related or not, you are family," Wukong replied. "When I was crashing the party, I saw many jugs of celestial wine. Y'all haven't had a taste yet. Let me go steal a few bottles so that y'all can drink half a cup and you will all be immortal." I mean, they were already immortal, again, thanks to your shenanigans in the underworld, but given that Sun Wukong himself had obtained immortality by 4 or 5 different means already, I guess it's only fair for his lackeys to also have a backup eternal life insurance policy. So Wukong flew back up to heaven, made himself invisible, and snuck back to the scene of the party. All the staff that he had previously put to sleep with his magic were still out. He tucked a jar of wine under each arm and carried another jar in each hand, and flew back to Flower and Fruit Mountain, whereupon his monkeys held a festival of celestial wine, and each of them indulged in a few cups of the heavenly brew. Meanwhile, in the immortal peach orchard, the 7 fairies who had been sent by the Golden Mother to pick peaches for a festival were still frozen in place by Wukong's magic. It took most of a day before that spell wore off. Once they could move again, they rushed back to the Golden Mother and told her, "The Great Sage cast a spell to keep us frozen in place. That's why we're late getting back." "How many peaches did y'all pick?" she asked them. "Just 2 baskets of small peaches and 3 baskets of medium peaches. There wasn't a single large peach in the orchard in the back. The Great Sage must have eaten them all. When we were looking for large peaches, he suddenly appeared and threatened to hit us. And then he asked us who had been invited to the festival. We told him the guest list for past festivals, and then he froze us and disappeared to who knows where. We only now came to." The Golden Mother now rushed to see her husband, the Jade Emperor. to tell him about this travesty. As they were talking, the attendants and brewers who were setting up the festivals rushed in and said, "Someone crashed the festival. They drank all the wine and ate all the food." Before they were done lodging their complaint, word came that Lao Tzu was outside. The Jade Emperor and the Golden Mother went out to greet him, and Lao Tzu told them, "I had been making golden elixir pills in my palace, but someone stole them." And a moment later, the attendants assigned to Sun Wukong's residence rushed in and said, "The great sage ignored his duties and went out touring yesterday and hasn't come back yet. We don't know where he went." As the Jade Emperor was slowly connecting the dots, the barefoot immortal showed up and said, "I was on my way to attend the festival yesterday when I ran into the great sage. He told me that I should go to the Hall of Perfect Light first for a rehearsal of ceremonies before attending the festival. I did as he said, but when I got to the Hall of Perfect Light, there was no one there, so I rushed over here." The Jade Emperor was stunned. "That scoundrel dared to forge orders from me? Hurry, have the Divine Inspector find out where he went." Said inspector made the rounds, took careful notes, and came back to report. The great sage was the one who caused all this havoc. Which, great powers of deduction there, buddy. He then basically rehashed everything everyone else had already told the Jade Emperor, and the Jade Emperor was irate. He summoned the 4 heavenly kings, Li Jing and Ne Zha, and a whole gaggle of other gods in the celestial bureaucracy. He commanded them to lead 100,000 troops to go capture Sun Wukong. Riding on a yellow gale and purple haze that blocked out the sky, this immense host descended upon Flower and Fruit Mountain. They set up camp and completely surrounded the mountain, laying out 18 sets of cosmic nets to keep anyone from escaping. Then, they sent out their first combatants, the 9 luminaries. These guys corresponded to major celestial bodies like the Sun, the Moon, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and so forth. They went to the Water Curtain Cave and shouted to the monkeys playing outside, "Little demons, where is your great sage? We are gods sent from heaven to bring that rebel to heel. Tell him to surrender now. If he resists, you all will die with him." The demon lackeys hurriedly reported this to Sun Wukong, who was in the midst of feasting with his 4 senior monkey generals and the demon leaders of the 72 caves on the mountain. When he got word of the challenge, he laughed it off and said, "As the saying goes, if you have wine today, get drunk today. Mind not the troubles in front of your door." So he and his friends kept drinking. Moments later, however, another gaggle of lackeys rushed in and said, "Those 9 vicious gods are cursing you in the most profane way outside." Wukong laughed it off again. "Just ignore them. As the saying goes, let us seek today's pleasure in poetry and wine, and cease asking when we may achieve glory or fame." But he had not even finished talking when another group of lackeys came in and said, "Those 9 gods have broken our doors and are charging in." Now Sun Wukong was pissed. How dare those puny gods be so rude? I wasn't going to nitpick with them, but now they're coming in to pick on me? He ordered his vanguard generals, the Unicorn Demon Kings, to lead the 72 demon leaders out for battle. He and his 4 monkey generals followed right behind. They stormed out, but were met by the 9 luminaries at the head of the steel bridge leading into the cave. Just as the 2 sides were squabbling, Sun Wukong showed up and shouted, "Make way!" Wielding his golden rod, he charged out in attack. The 9 luminaries hurriedly fell back outside before regrouping. He then said to Wukong, "You damn stable monkey! You've committed the most egregious offenses. You stole peaches, and then stole wine and crashed the festival. And you stole Lao Tzu's pills, and then you stole more wine and brought it back here. You have committed crime upon crime. Don't you realize that?" Wukong laughed and said, "Yup, guilty as charged, but what are you going to do about it? We have come here with a mighty host, with orders to apprehend you. Surrender at once so that these other creatures won't have to die. Otherwise, we will flatten your mountain and turn your cave upside down." Wukong flew into a rage. "What powers do you puny gods have? How dare you boast? Stand still and taste my rod." The 9 luminaries charged and surrounded him, but Wukong was like, "Oh please." He raised his rod and easily fought all 9 of them off. Exhausted, the 9 luminaries fell back, dragging their weapons behind them and reporting to Li Jing. That Monkey King really is quite fierce. We were no match for him. Li Jing now sent out the 4 heavenly kings along with the spirits of the 28 constellations. This crew charged forward and were met by Sun Wukong, the unicorn demon kings, the 4 senior monkey generals, and the demon leaders of the 72 caves. The two sides scrummed from morning till dusk, and it did not end well for Sun Wukong's side. The unicorn demon kings and the 72 demon leaders were all captured by the gods. Only the 4 senior monkey generals escaped, hiding deep in the bottom of the water curtain cave. Meanwhile, Sun Wukong was up in the sky, single-handedly fighting against the 4 heavenly kings, Li Jing and Ne Zha. As the fight dragged on until night, Wukong decided to even out the numbers a bit. He plucked off a handful of hair, chewed it up, sprayed it out, and turned them into thousands of copies of himself, all wielding golden rods. This proved to be too much, and his foes fell back. Victorious in his fight, Wukong returned to the cave, but there he was greeted by his 4 monkey generals, who welcomed him with 3 wails and 3 laughs. "Why are you all crying and laughing?" he asked. The 4 senior monkeys said, "While you were fighting, the demon leaders of the 72 caves, plus the unicorn demon kings, were all captured by the gods. We alone managed to escape, that's why we cried. But you came back uninjured and victorious, that's why we laughed." "Victory and defeat are common in war," Wukong told them. "As the ancients said, if you kill 10,000 enemies, you will lose 3,000 of your own. Besides, the ones who were captured were all other animals. We haven't lost a single monkey, so why worry? Even though I used a little duplication magic to fight them off, they're still camped out at the foot of our mountain. We must be on guard. Let's eat a good meal and get some sleep. Come morning, watch me use my powers to capture those gods so as to avenge our own casualties." So the monkeys drank some wine and went to bed. Meanwhile, the celestial army regrouped. They had prisoners aplenty, but not a single monkey among them. They returned to camp, rewarded the soldiers, and told everyone to be on guard as they awaited another battle come morning. While both sides braced for another coming clash, let's go back up to heaven, where the Jade Emperor received a special visitor. This was the Bodhisattva Guanyin of the South Sea. Now, we have actually met a version of this character back in Investiture of the Gods. But back then, she was a Taoist and she was a he. In that novel, one of the members of the Chan sex class of 12 was named Merciful Navigation. According to that novel, apparently after the events in Investiture of the Gods, Merciful Navigation changed religion, and by the time we got to the journey to the west, he had become a female bodhisattva named Guanyin. A bodhisattva is someone who has made a commitment to becoming a Buddha and has also received a confirmation from a living Buddha that they will become one. The bodhisattva Guanyin apparently has many manifestations, including both male and female forms, though in Chinese mythology, Guanyin is typically portrayed as female, and she is essentially a goddess of compassion and mercy. So this Guanyin was a VIP in the world of immortals and gods, and she was on the guest list for that festival of peaches that the Golden Mother was throwing. So Guanyin set out for the party, accompanied by her senior disciple, who just so happened to be Mu Zha, the middle son of Li Jing and an elder brother to Ne Zha. And of course, we met him too in Investiture of the Gods. When Guanyin and Mu Zha arrived at the Jade Pool, however, they were greeted with a total mess. All the food, wine, and decor were in disarray, and the few other immortals who were present were standing around talking amongst themselves in great agitation. After greeting her, the other immortals brought Guanyin up to speed on what happened to their party. "Since there is no more party, you all should come with me to go see the Jade Emperor," she said. So they all went to the Hall of Perfect Light, where they were greeted by a whole other gaggle of gods and immortals. They told her that the Jade Emperor was on pins and needles because his massive celestial army had not been able to bring Sun Wukong to heel. "I would like to see the Jade Emperor," Guanyin said. "Please announce me." A short while later, she was invited in, so she entered and saw the Jade Emperor with his queen, the Golden Mother, and Lao Zi. They greeted each other and sat down, and then Guanyin asked knowingly, What happened to the Peach Festival? It's been a huge celebration every year, the Jade Emperor said. But this year, a demon monkey crashed the party. Where did this demon come from? Guan Yin asked. He was born from a boulder on Flower and Fruit Mountain near the kingdom of Aolai on the eastern continent. When he was born, his eyes shot golden light that pierced the heavens. We didn't pay him any mind at the time, but then he cultivated his Tao and became a demon and attained great powers and immortality. Both the Dragon King and the King of Death lodged complaints. I wanted to apprehend him, but Venus convinced me to exercise compassion and recruit him to heaven instead. So I invited him here and appointed him as supervisor of the stables. But he spat on that job for being too low and rebelled. I sent Li Jing and Ne Zha to arrest him, and then I granted him amnesty, summoned him here again, and bestowed upon him the title of Great Sage equal to heaven. It was an empty title with no responsibilities. Because he had nothing to do, he spent all day going here and there. I was afraid that he would stir up trouble, so I put him in charge of the peach orchard. But he disobeyed the rules and ate all the peaches. Then, when it was time for the festival, because he wasn't on the payroll, he didn't get an invitation. But he tricked Barefoot Immortal into going to the wrong place, assumed his form, and crashed the party, eating all the food and drinking all the wine. He then stole Laozi's immortality pills and stole some more wine for the monkeys on his mountain. I was really irritated, so I sent 100,000 celestial troops to capture him. But they haven't reported back in a day, and I don't know how they are faring. After hearing the full story, Guan Yin said to her disciple Mu Zha, "You should go to Flower and Fruit Mountain at once to see how the army is faring, and lend them a hand if you should encounter the enemy. Be sure to report back." So Mu Zha picked up a steel staff and flew down to Flower and Fruit Mountain. It was dawn, and he saw that the celestial army had completely surrounded the mountain. Mu Zha announced himself and requested an audience with the commander, aka his father Li Jing. He was soon summoned in, so he entered and paid his respects. "My child, why are you here?" Li Jing asked. "I was accompanying the Bodhisattva Guan Yin to the Peach Festival. She saw that the place had been ransacked, so she went to see the Jade Emperor. He told her that you had gone to the mortal realm to tame a demon monkey and had not reported back in a day, so she sent me here to find out the situation." Li Jing told him, "We pitched camp yesterday and sent the 9 luminaries to go fight, but that monkey was too powerful and they retreated. Then I personally led the troops to fight him, and he also came out with his forces. Our soldiers scrummed with them until late. He used some duplication magic and fought us off. We only managed to capture some demon wolves, tigers, leopards, and such, not a single demon monkey. We haven't gone to fight him yet today." Just then, word came that Sun Wukong and a bunch of his monkeys were outside challenging for battle. Mu Zha now said, "Father, when Guan Yin sent me here, she instructed me to lend a hand if the opportunity arose. I am willing to go meet this great sage." "My son, you have been studying under Guan Yin all these years, so you must have some powers," Li Jing said. "But be careful." So Mu Zha went out with his steel staff and shouted, "Which one is the great sage?" Wukong answered and asked for his name. When Mu Zha introduced himself as a disciple of Guan Yin, Wukong said, "What are you doing here instead of staying in the South Sea and working on your cultivation?" "My master sent me here to assess the situation, but seeing how unruly you are, I have come to capture you." "How dare you boast? Stay and taste my rod!" Wukong shot back as he attacked. Mu Zha showed no sign of fear and countered with his own steel staff. The two of them now squared off on the mountain. After about 60 exchanges, however, Mu Zha was starting to falter, so he turned and fled when Wukong led his monkeys back to their cave. Back at the Celestial Army's camp, Mu Zha met up with his father, brother, and other gods. As he tried to catch his breath, he lamented, "What a great sage indeed! He really is powerful. I was not a match for him." This made Li Jing even more troubled. He now wrote up a request for reinforcements and sent Mu Zha and another officer back to heaven to ask for help. When they returned to heaven, Guan Yin asked Mu Zha how things went. He told her the situation, and she looked down in silent contemplation. Meanwhile, the Jade Emperor read the petition from Li Jing and scoffed. "How much skill can one demon monkey have? that he can fend off 100,000 celestial troops. And now, Li Jing is asking for reinforcements, but where can I find more help? Guan Yin now piped up. Have no worries, your highness. I would like to recommend a god who can capture this monkey. Who is it? It's your nephew, the god Erlang, Guan Yin said. By the way, this Erlang is just another name for Yang Jian, one of the key characters from Investiture of the Gods. But since he's never referred to as Yang Jian in Journey to the West, I'm going to call him Erlang from here on out. He is currently based at the mouth of the Guan River, where his temple enjoys regular offerings from mortals, Guan Yin continued. He once slew 6 demons, has 6 sworn brothers from Osmanthus Mountain, and 1,200 minor gods in his service, and he possesses great powers. But he can only be requested, not summoned. You must issue a decree asking him for help. Then you can capture the monkey. The Jade Emperor promptly did as she suggested and sent a god to deliver the message. The courier took to the air and soon arrived at Erlang's temple. The demon magistrates guarding the door announced him, and Erlang and his sworn brothers came out to receive the edict. It said, "The demon monkey from Flower and Fruit Mountain, the great sage equal to heaven, stole peaches, wine, and immortality pills from the palace and crashed the Peach Festival. We have sent 100,000 celestial troops and 18 sets of cosmic nets to capture him, but have yet to succeed. So, I am asking you, good nephew, and your sworn brothers to go to Flower and Fruit Mountain to help eliminate this rebel. When you succeed, you will be handsomely rewarded." Erlang was delighted by this assignment. He sent the envoy back and told him that he would go help at once. He then gathered his 6 sworn brothers, mobilized his troops, brought along his hunting hound and eagle, as well as bow and arrows. Riding on a strong gale, they crossed the East Sea in the blink of an eye and arrived at Flower and Fruit Mountain. They were greeted by the cosmic nets that surrounded the mountain and kept everything in and out. "Listen up, you gods who are controlling the cosmic nets," Erlang shouted. "I am the god Erlang, here by command of the Jade Emperor to capture the demon monkey. Open up the camp gate for me." The message made its way into the camp, and moments later, Li Jing and the 4 heavenly kings came out to welcome Erlang. When he inquired how the battle was going, they brought him up to speed. "Now that I am here, I will engage him in a contest of transformations," Erlang said with a smile. "You all just keep the cosmic nets tight on all sides except the top. Let me face off against him. If I lose to him, there's no need for you all to intervene. My sworn brothers will get my back. And if I beat him, you don't need to come help apprehend him either. My brothers will do the job. But Commander Li, please stand in the sky with a demon-reflecting mirror. I worry that if he loses, he's going to try to flee. Then I will need the mirror to reveal his whereabouts." So everyone snapped to, and Erlang led his entourage and went to challenge for battle. When he approached the water curtain cave, he saw an army of monkeys lined up in a neat dragon-shaped formation. In the center stood a tall flagpole with a banner that said, "Great Sage, equal to heaven." "That damn demon," Erlang scoffed. "How can he claim to be equal to heaven?" When the monkeys saw Erlang, they hurriedly reported to Wukong, who came out with golden rod in hand to have a look. He saw this young man with exquisite features and an uncommon air, wielding a 3-tipped saber and wearing a flying phoenix headdress, a suit of yellow armor, golden boots, and a jade belt. Wukong chuckled, flashed his golden rod, and shouted, "Who are you, young man, that you would dare to come here to challenge me?" "You must be blind to not recognize me," Erlang shot back. "I am the Jade Emperor's nephew Erlang, the king of illustrious grace and spirit. I have come on the Jade Emperor's command to capture you rebel. And yet, you still don't know any better." "Ah, I remember now," Wukong laughed. "The Jade Emperor's sister once snuck down to Earth, married a mortal man named Yang, and gave birth to a son. That son later split open a mountain with his axe to save her. Would that be you? Look, kid, I could insult you, but I've no grudge against you. I could hit you with my rod, but then you would be dead, and what a pity that would be. Just go on back and tell the 4 heavenly kings to come face me." Erlang was furious at that slight. Damn monkey, he cursed. Don't you be rude. Taste my blade. As he spoke, he raised his saber and attacked. Wukong dodged his swing and started to fight back, and the two engaged in a fierce battle. To see how this showdown will end, tune in to the next episode of the Chinese Lore Podcast. Thanks for listening.